Hey, JC, do you have the agenda?
Yes.
She's waiting around on that.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Mr. Klein, will you please provide us with the invocation, sir?
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, we got some big decisions to make today. You know that more than any of us do. And we ask your wisdom, your guidance, your patience, and your blessings on everything we do today in this meeting. We ask that you help us do the will of the people and your will as well. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Recognition of the public, okay, seeing none. I'll go ahead and give my report, and my report's just gonna outline, this is a light agenda, but there's quite a bit going on today. I appreciate everybody being here. So here's kind of the thrust of how we're gonna go. What we're gonna first do is, Mr. Warren is gonna reorient us on the overall budget. And so the new sheet, I believe, will have some adjustments that we made both from the last meeting that have now been baked in. And we had put out some requests for folks to send targeted cuts if they could find them, and some folks came back, and we very much appreciate that. So a lot of that's gonna be baked in.
Target's not baked in.
Oh, the target isn't baked in, okay.
They're here to-
Okay, so but we do have those, so we'll start from the bottom, then we'll look at some of the notes that we have. We have some specific things to look at for the library, some specific things from the election commission, and then from there, we'll move into some of the individual budgets, and during the individual budgets, I know folks are here, you will, as we have done before, have the opportunity to speak on anything as stuff is coming up. So I'm going to try to move us along pretty quickly, but given that we've asked for some additional kind of cuts, we will allow people to speak and be liberal with that. One more note that I would like to do, I'd like to set a hard stop. Do we have a hard stop on here? I don't know.
No, sir, but we do have a committee that starts at 5:30.
Yeah, so I have a hard stop at 3. I have to. What's that?
I'll second that.
So all right. I'm gonna hard stop at 3. We have a second.
I have to leave at 12 because I still have a day.
Do we still have?
To make sure, yeah, you'll still have a quorum unless somebody else is
All
scheduled.
right. I mean, I would be fine. I think we'll be done before then. How about stop at 2? I'll have a motion to stop at 2. We have a second on that.
Second.
Are you good with the second, Ms. Bergdorf?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So hard stop at 2.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
We're gonna have are we gonna stop, like, are you anticipating we're completely finished,
I-
or there's another day in the future?
I think we will be done with recurring today. That is my intent. We may have a little bit left on capital if we're getting close. Go
And your
ahead.
long-term planning sheets that we work on. My recommendation is we have them, but I haven't reviewed them completely. But what you do today will have a great determination on the long-term trajectory. So my recommendation is during one of your other budget committee meetings, such as June, you may want to consider possibly shifting it and making it a little earlier, and we could go through long-term planning.
And I do think that once we publish this out, we are still by statute
10
required to have a,
10 business days.
yeah.
here.
So bottom line is that we will have another one.
But we
one
can't
more.
change in that 10 days,
But
can we?
what, this is what happens. You guys are going to do your changes today.
Yes.
You'll vote for it, we'll publish it out, we'll put it on the website, we'll notify all departments. When we notify them, it has to be at least 10 business days that you give them. My recommendation, you want to give them long enough, but you're down to that last, plus you're still waiting for the schools. So a pertinent thought may be to take your next regularly scheduled budget meeting, maybe move it to Tuesday or the week, whenever.
The June one, not the
The
one.
June one, not the May. Move it, because you're gonna have schools also at that point,
Okay.
potentially. Move it earlier, go through the hearings that you have left, because you've already had the schools and potentially the school second hearing. And at the same time, spend,
Wait, do go through the hearings during a regular budget meeting?
you know, at the beginning before, because you've
That's
still
gonna
got long-term planning.
That's gonna be, there may be more, that's gonna be that would be a lady.
Did you wanna have another daytime
I
one?
think we will,
Okay.
I think let's.
I know it's
see-
hard on the committee
let's
members,
see
some of them
what
that
we-
work, so
let's
that's
see
why
what
I'm
we get.
recommending that.
Let's see what we get here, let's see how far we get, and bottom line, to answer your point, Ms. Boyd, we will need another one. I mean, I understand the thrust
have
of
hard time
that,
getting
but
their
like,
word.
we could also do it in afternoon where there are no other meetings, right? So like, we could have a block of
You could have another
a whole
night
lot.
just for that.
Yeah, so let's see how far we get. We will, by statute, we're gonna need another one anyway. I'm gonna try to avoid having two, because I do think, but based on what you and I have spoken about yesterday, that we're quite close, to where we need to be, so.
When the schools present, after if there's any changes, then you will have 10 days for them too, and they may not get your budget till June 1st, so there's a potential for two
There's a
more.
potential for two,
Two
but
more.
for those, so for that stuff that we can control.
Right, you got
Like,
one.
we've got one.
You've got one left, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm recommending you do. Once you get the schools locked down, that's
Yeah.
when we'll go back and we'll put it on the screen with all your calculations like we always do, your long-term plans.
And guys, look, we're well ahead of schedule here in terms of what we have to have a budget presented by the state, right? So we're doing just fine.
Ideal would be to have it approved by June 30, but you have until the last day of August.
We're,
Without special approval,
and we've
and
never got the time.
you're not gonna get special approval, you're not gonna get special
So we're-
approval, so.
We're fine.
So we're not gonna spin through too quickly?
No. We've got time, but I also want to, I don't want the up or down. I want our departments to have some good, we've got hundreds of employees out there kind of like, what's happening, and we want to
With
give
part-time, you
them,
have about 1,100.
yeah, we want them to know, and I don't
That's
want
what I
them.
do too.
Yeah, okay. Any other, any comment?
Just a question,
Yeah.
how short were we after the last meeting?
So that's gonna.
Number one thing I'm going through.
Yeah, we're gonna start with that because
I wanna show you because
there's some assumptions that we can flex a little
there's
bit.
assumptions involved and where you guys really wanna be and where you're at. And I wanna try to show you as clearly
Yeah.
as possible
So
in a very short snippet.
You're leading us where we wanna go, and with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Let's pop up here, Bethany. There's a new sheet over here right beside the general fund that says general fund stats. Whoa, slow down there. Back, can you scroll us out because I made it big to make it viewable and now it's getting to be too big. That is not the sheet going back. Is there another? You keep going back so you don't have to hold, shrink it down more, you don't have to hold tables. There you go. Keep going. Can everybody, go back up, I want them just to see the table. Works pretty good. Can everybody see the table?
Yes.
Very important, this is our fund balance, this is the year I came in, 2010. This is our fund balance back then, around $11 million. You are at $41 million over time you've grown. This is what I'm calling, and this is for a better word, let's just call it the delta. That's the difference between your budgeted unassigned revenues and your budgeted unassigned appropriations, and we'll change it, okay? We all know you've got a fairly good sized budget, so your budget should be their statutory limit, so you should have turned over funds. We can't necessarily count on those, but we can kind of guesstimate where those are gonna be over time based on trends. Number two, the one that we have the most is we estimate revenues. The county historically has estimated very conservative revenues because we don't know when a recession is gonna happen. And you don't wanna be telling people that you're not able to cover the appropriations in the county funds. So we've all planned for a recession. You're in the banking world, you know we're way past the time for a recession. We all know the economy because of COVID and everything's really skewed. So that's why you've got this huge uptick. We've been thinking of an economy, so we can't guarantee the revenues. But we can show you one thing. Last year, we budgeted pretty close. You are a little over $1 million up, and this is the delta for the 2 years, going 4 million and 3 million, okay? The delta's the difference. This is how much we went up to.
The delta is the difference between
Budgeted
budgeted
revenues,
versus
appropriations.
what we got in appropriations.
For only your unassigned fund balance, those changes, because the reason being is your restricted funds are for restricted purposes, you can't use them.
Highway.
Well, there's more restricted funds, there's restricted for
I mean, not just
courts,
that.
and these are just restricted funds only in your general fund. We're just looking for your general fund because that's your fund with your problems, okay? So let's go on down. I know the chart's pretty, let's go just slightly down right here, and this is what your delta looks like this year. If you would compare it to that, you think you're really great, but the issue we've got because of COVID and health, we've got several grants in there, so most of you understand modified accrual.
Can we take a pause real quick about what why we want to keep, this is a good visual for what we were talking, thank you for putting this together. This is a good visual for what we were talking about yesterday, about how much burn down we have. If this goes to zero, you're in a deficit spending, is that a correct?
That's a correct.
You're in a
correct.
what?
If this line goes to zero or negative, you are in a deficit
Go
spending scenario.
go on up
Okay.
there and I'll show them. When you go back up on the graph, just roll up.
So you
When
want to
you
keep that
truly
thing
are gonna
flat.
see when you're actually spending fund balance, if you come just straight. If you see this, it's technically, there's 1 year where we had like a $500,000 use of fund balance since I've been here. That was in a year that we really planned to use part of the fund balance for one-time funds. So when you're truly reaching a deficit, is when this line goes down, which you can see it dips slightly right there. These are based on conservative revenues and a growing budget with unspent appropriations, and we've kept this fairly
You want to keep
constant.
it flat.
Well, we've kept it fairly constant, but let's go down and show you where you're at right now. This is where where we show, if you look on your main budget page on the sheet, we'll go over there and look in a minute if you want to. You've got about 1.7 million, which is significantly less than, it's significantly less than either one of these, but there's a couple of things in play. You have grants. So a prime example is this one right here. You've got the health department. We're getting ready to drop a PO. We're gonna show it as a budgetary expenditure. It's coming out of your fund balance. We're not gonna claim any revenues the next year, so all those revenues show up in 26. So it's really skewing that number, so I try to eliminate the skew. So when we pull it back in, it would be somewhere around there reasonably. This was your delta last year. It's about 955, 955,000 some odd change. And I put the change on it just to show you because it's the most significant. That's how much you actually picked up on that delta. But two things, you look, the delta was smaller than here. And the other thing you've really got to look at, that same year you picked up almost $1.3 million worth of revenue. So what I'm looking at right now, in a normalized year, you're going to, where you're at right now, pick up fund balance. The thing is that if you think it's going to be a significant recession, then you're at the point where you probably need to keep closing the delta. If you think it's going to be a normalized economy, you're actually going to pick up. If you want to be somewhere in between, you're pretty close to the number you're wanting to hit right now. But yes, Dave.
The 1.3 that we picked up, was that from sales tax? That
No,
was,
that's not in, no. Your sales tax is all over in your capital projects now.
okay, so how did we pick, was it a surprise?
It's a couple of things. We always have, just think of the certain things we go, you've got probably near, 100 revenues? Would that be close? 90? We have lots of revenue. You got court fees, you got EMS fees.
Yeah.
You've got property taxes. Property taxes is relatively stable, but you got to think of things. There's appeals that happen all throughout the year, so I take those appeals out because you're not reasonably assured. And we usually come out better. Also, the last couple of years, we've had a 98% collectability on your property tax. What that means is your tax roll, you're collecting between 97 and 98% of that. But those are historically high. So I've been using 97.5 and 97, putting those appeals in there. And then historically, we've actually came in some years actually picked up, you picked up more add-ons than your appeals. That's where you're picking up one of your amounts. Then the other things is we have changed the building fee structures, and I've been really conservative on building permits because a lot of you are worried about growth, and there's been a somewhat push to slow growth. Well, based on your building permits, I've kept those flatter down, but it's really not done that because your building permits are historically high.
Right now they are.
They have been the last couple of years, so that's where you're picking up money. Same thing, so you've got, across the general fund, 90 to 100 revenues that we've been conservative for a large budget, so you're picking up those numbers.
Okay, so.
Your other number, that's just part of it, and that's the smaller significant. The other one is you've got a budget with last year, and I'd have to pull the number, where it's gonna say a number, we know it's exact, $100 million. If everybody spent 97% of $100 million, you're gonna pick up $3 million by itself. So you've got to think those two interplaying. So your delta, where I'm looking at it right now, there's a very good chance that you're going to pick up fund balance with that number. But if you want to take the most pessimistic approach and you're worried about tariffs and the recession's coming this year and it's going to be worse than 08, 09, then yes. But the other thing you've got to remember, on up here, is you're also at a historically high fund balance, and I know our appropriations has grown every year, but these years here where we've been really, really conservative, we had some really large pickups. So just in a nutshell, what I'm saying is if you think you're gonna be anywhere near a normalized economy and you're gonna leave those 3 cents in there, then you are pretty much balanced. The other thing you gotta think of, we're looking at it long-term, because what we're trying to do, and that's what me and Matt's talked about several times. You can go on down there. We want to try to keep this number less than your budgetary savings and your revenue safely in that mark. We feel we're in that next year. The 3 cents coming over from debt service, as we talked about last year, are reoccurring funds. If you remember, when we started, you had some one-time funds and some reoccurring funds from general debt service. Your reoccurring funds that you could move forever and still balance your debt service because we've got a flat amortization schedule. You've actually got around, I'm gonna read you the amount, and everybody has this sheet from yesterday. When you started, you had about $14.7 million, and you've moved about 3.3 out of that. So you've still got over $11 million sitting out there. So overall, what I'm seeing on your long-term trajectory looks pretty good.
Yeah, so that, to be clear, that 12 cents, assuming that 3, that is what will keep this flat. The ability, because if that gets down to 0, and you don't have anywhere else to draw from, this starts dropping off.
And because we all know one truth here, your property tax, some of your revenues do, but one of your large revenues puts a significant pressure on your property tax and does not capture inflation.
Now look,
It captures growth, but it don't capture inflation.
so to be clear, this is just a really good graph, man. Thank you. Like what you're doing is like building layers. You're building layers of baking in what we know will be some level of growth over the next several years, right? Like that's what we've been trying to do here is instead of having like, oh my goodness, there's a train in front of us and we have to have a tax increase, we can see the spend several years out. So look, 12 cents, this is still flat. Let's say that's 5 years, 2 to 3 pennies, this year plus 4 more. You've got, before this, this stays completely flat. After that, you've still got, you're still in the positive in terms of fund balance growth at that point. So you've still got a year or 2 of runway before you're worried. And beyond that, you've got other triggers you can pull, right? Like before you're ever worried about a property tax increase. I'm not saying we want to do this now, but 5, 6, 7 years down the road, you've got that half-cent sales tax that the cities have. That's probably like 0.5%. Sorry. That's probably 11 million. What?
Well, you looked at it. We looked at Hendersonville, but we haven't looked at.
We did look at Gallatin, so it's millions.
Well, and
We can
everybody else is
explore it
doing
when
it too.
everybody's interested.
My
but we'll
point
be
is
able
that we
to
don't need to worry about that right now because we've built this.
But we'll
this-
never get those millions, we decided that the other day.
If
It'd be tough,
you
the taxpayers will have to.
if you do the referendum, what happens is the amount that's going to the school or going to the city, the amount that's completely going, that second half will go to your school department. So if your school department has to have funds and you're looking down at a property tax, one of your options is you referendum countywide and they pick up the second half and the unincorporated and they pick up that second half of the increase, that last 0.5% from the 2 large municipalities over into the school departments. So right now your school department's not getting that money, it all
I
goes
want
to
to
the cities.
go ahead and get you, and I want to go
Yeah,
ahead.
but
Mr. Klein.
there's a quick question. Would that half of the tax, those city taxes, if we got that through a referendum, the money goes, all of that money goes to the schools, would that be included in their MOE?
Yes, but yes and no on the first statement, because the second half of the incorporated area, that increase would go to the schools. The increase, that was the new increase in the second half of the county would go to the schools. The second half of the first half of the county, let's just say, the other half, the increase on that would be available to the county commission for any allowable legal purpose.
And on top of that,
You would pick up some in the county too.
On top of that, you could reduce all we are on the hook for is a total amount for MOE. So yes, it would go into that, but you could reduce the property tax again, which we did last time.
Right.
So that, they could still get a good bump, but we would collect more of it for the general fund as well. And I'm not saying we want to do that now. We don't need to do that right now. It's a it's a bullet in the
The whole
magazine. once
It
we
would,
need
it
to.
would relieve our need to pay for our first line.
Let's make sure, that,
Services.
Dave, what you, MOE means maintenance of effort. You had to budget the same amount as last year, but you do have to cover the TIS or TASER amount too. There's a matching in there,
Well, we're-
understanding is you're
we're-
significantly
We're
above.
way over that.
You're significantly above that, but
So
that's all I'm saying, that's your matching. When you-
So
when you
let
come to
me
it.
summarize one more thing here before handing it off, David. So look, at the end of the day, what we're gonna need to make a decision on, all of these are based around assumptions. So the decision we need to make is, we had that million or so that we needed to close. We've gotten some in. That million, 1.2 or wherever we were at, was based on some fairly pessimistic assumptions. And I personally don't want to assume a standard year, but I don't know that we need to assume a 6 months recession anyway. So, there's a sliding scale we can put in there that would, between that and what we've had come in as, a minimal cuts, we can probably close that gap and we may be able to build back up a little
But
bit.
one more very important thing to remember is, if you say you determine a normalized year, correct? The two places that you have the most pressure on is debt service, which has a strong reserve, and your county general fund. So the thing is, one of the reasons to have strong reserves is if you want to assume a more normalized economy, because recessions are generally temporary unless the whole world changes, then it could be used to cover that shortage or delta or whatever you want to call it, and then the next year you get more normalized. That's what it's for. The only one I caution you for, the same thing we talked about sales taxes, remember the 6 million in the Department of Education though. If you overestimate their revenues, they potentially create a reserve in addition, and it hits them twice. So you do need to be very cautious on their projections.
Okay, Mr. Harrison.
Just 2 points to clarify. Based on this delta,
Yes, sir.
what builds that is underestimating
Yes, sir.
revenues,
And
which is smart. I mean, that's how you build it. And overestimating expenses.
Right.
So it's, and the 1.2 that we got to was based on making cuts like with sheriff's deputies, paramedics, those kinds of things, which scares me because growth is what's going to add to those numbers. Building permits are not down no matter how many actions we've taken to try to slow growth, it's not slowing. So.
And I booted that up this year.
Yes.
I booted in this number. I have increased your building permits, but not, if I would take your trend line, all else assuming equal, not work, I would have it much higher, but there's two things
Sure.
in play. We do know the tariffs and stuff. We don't know how it's gonna affect, because it is gonna affect building materials.
It will.
But everybody's talking about potential interest rate decreases, so we don't know really what's gonna happen there. But there's also a push because there's a lot of congestion. There's been I guess, a somewhat push from the county to slow growth, is my understanding from what I'm seeing. I don't wanna speak for
Sure.
anybody at the table.
Sure, I
But so it makes me more cautious on your adequate facilities tax and debt service, your building permits over in the general fund, and your planning, for rezoning over in your general fund. It does make me more cautious. And as you know, I'm pretty cautious anyway. I'm not
Sure.
going to paint you a rosy picture.
I'm just saying that the growth numbers indicate that, in my estimation,
We should be more.
cutting sheriff's deputies and paramedics is probably not a good idea, which is why we got to that 1.2
Right.
or whatever to begin with.
And to say overestimate expenditures, each department makes their request. I think they make good faith estimates. What generally happens, why you end up with those, they think they have to replace equipment. They're worried about fuel. And what we've had in the past a lot of times, and ECC is a prime example, they were set up several years back, but they've had significant issues in recruitment. So every year they turned a lot back because of vacant positions they really needed. EMS was having that about 2 years ago. And then in the jail, the sheriff's department still faces the same issue. They can't fill the positions in the jail, so they have all these vacant positions they're trying to fill but can't fill. So that's where a lot of your money comes from, and gas prices and other variables.
But Mr. Hyde.
Over last year, what is this budget, what kind of increase do we see this budget over last year,
In the summer.
percentage-wise?
Now, this is gonna be going down, and this is gonna be, I'm gonna have to tell Mr. Hyde, I don't want to deceive anybody here. Looking at it on the top, you're saying 2.57, but going up, Miss Browning, if you don't care. That number's hard to say because you have, oh, go back. This is ARPA, where we know we're planning to spend, probably gonna do carriers, that's at $37.5 million worth of ARPA, that's the carryover on that. And then you remember, and David's aware, he's in Gen Ops, and I think about all of these, we actually have the SWIG up in, which is the water project up in Portland and Westmoreland, that were the main entity. We picked up another, $1.8 million this year on it. Those two are dropping out, so it's gonna sway your number down, but at the same time, we've got other one time, so if you really account for that, that's $6 million going down, Ms. Browning. So you'd have to add, really it's at 2 and about 6, so you're really up about $8-9 million, so that $6 million of $100 million last year is what, about 6%, so about 8.5-9%, to be honest.
The budget is going up 8 or 9%.
Once we
Over
remove,
last year.
Once we remove some of
Over
those
last year.
Once you
factors.
normalize, or not normalize, but once you pull out those one-time funds, which are counted in right now and should not be.
Well, the one thing that I'm concerned with is the fact that the U.S. government is saying that the adjusted salary increase for Americans this year was 3%, adjusted 3%, between 3% and 3.6%. And we're increasing our budget 8 or 9. That is going to eventually be a problem when we can't budget what people are getting in salary increases. It's going to happen one day, and it's just something to think about. Then the other thing that bothers me a little is that it's sort of like what Commissioner Harrison said. I think we should be very selective about what cuts we're making, because there's some that will definitely hurt us in the long run if we make those cuts.
And as far as the CPI is at 3% right now. The one that's hit you that's across the country for several years has been a problem is health insurance, and we're even doing well. It was 5% this year. You've been building reserves in your health insurance, but when I got here, there was a deficit back in 2009. And that time, the agreement with the county commission was on the health insurance that, one, they infused a lot of cash, because I think me, you, and several other commissioners, I don't know if anybody else was here at the time, they would infuse cash, but what the insurance committee would set up two things. They would actuarially determine premiums to make sure it looks correct. And then number two, they did a wellness program, and then they changed the split with employees from 80-20, 80% employee, 20% employee, 80% county. 15% employee, 85% county, to 20% employee, 80 county. It flipped it around, about 25% increase. So that's one of your big cost drivers. And then another one we've seen a lot of pressure in is we've got it out for bid right now, and it's not even came back, but what we're getting preliminary, and it's built in this budget, we may have to go adjust it again, is your we're fully insured, but our reinsurance for your liability, like on your buildings, or your liability or for loss of buildings, the reinsurance is quite significant this year too. That's two things that's driving it. And then overall growth of the county's been about 2% population.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and what I'm saying is not really measurable.
I understand.
But I'm just saying that if I'm a taxpayer sitting out here in Sumner County, and my salary by U.S. standards is adjusted is only increasing somewhere between 3 and 3.6%, and our government is growing at 8 to 10%. They're having to make cuts to live within that, and they're wondering why we're not making cuts to live within our standards. That's all, and it's not anything can really be measured.
And don't take me, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just trying to tell you what's built into the 8%, try to give you the details. Because that's really, you guys are the voting board on everything, I'm just here to provide information. But let's go back to the graph, and I want to, just to give you, because it's not really clear, and I did it on purpose. If you can just left click and add that data point better than that one only, just click right there and left click and you'll say add. Just click it again, wait, we'll show them. Now hit left click, and you'll say add, or right click. I get it backwards, you just click and it tells it add data point. Add data label, right there. And then pull it up out of there, and then do the same thing right there. And I'm only doing it this way versus originally the way you can, after you've had a chance to kind of digest, you can see where we actually started. And this will really get your attention, and this is gonna definitely get Mr. Harris's attention, because I think, and Mr. Shove, and I don't know if we've talked about this much or not, but we talked about several things. Let me go ahead and do the one other data point. So, and while your budget's been growing all these years, this is, I think you're very conservative, and this is the reason. Just click it twice, basically, what you need. There, click it one more time, there you go. Or click it one more time, or you'll have, click the same thing. To me. There you go. Okay. This is what's really gonna show you, okay? The delta, remember the difference between budgeted, unassigned revenues, can be used for anything, and unassigned expenditures was about $3.2 million back here in 10. Your fund balance was only 11.6, okay? Your budget's been growing year after year after year, because this is 2010, and we're up to, just looking at 14 years. The delta's 3.2, we're here at 3.5 now. Get back to your fund balance, please. Fund balance, I believe, is 11. Shrink this just a tiny bit. There you go. Your fund balance is 11.6, but now you're up here at 41 million. So you got to think, you went from 11.6 to 41 on your actual reserves, but your delta is only 3.3 to 3. So right now, long term, this number here could even be slightly bigger based on normal, because you've grown. So the county over time has been very conservative, because we went on the same assumption. We do not know what the next year falls, so we've been very, very conservative. What it does build your fund balance, which, probably my point of view for a long-term view would be to try to keep this as low as you can, and if this does get large enough, you could use it for one-time capital, just like you do your other capital projects. So it's not a bad thing, but I was going to show you to make sure you have the full perspective. So you're not in any kind of long-term trajectory for a tax raise, because right now, if you hold everything else equal, no inflation, no increased expenditures from now on, you would forever, if nothing changed, based on actual estimate, you'd probably pick up fund balance. And those amounts we're talking about, the $3 million, is actually reoccurring, because you had about a difference between the amount needed to be moved back to debt service to make it flat for the next 11 years to what you have was about $14 million when you started, and you're only looking at using it.
But here's the thing that's important to understand. I'd like to respond a little bit to Mr. Harrison's point, a bit to Mr. Hodges' point. You don't build something like that. And look, what this really shows is, and I know there's a lot of consternation between all of the different commissions here, but at the end of the day, like, they're all, you can argue about the tax increases, but they've done a reasonable job for the last 14 years of building those reserves over time, right? I mean, all of us, like us previous and the ones previous to them. So, we're not in a bad spot. However, that's not done. It's done by little increments, right? It's the only real time we took up a big chunk is starting the 2020 tax increase. Like that was where it starts to diverge a little bit. But other than that, unless you want to have to say, hey, I'm going to get a tax increase, you're going to do this by like half millions and million increments, and those get broken down into 300,000 here and 250 there. So my point is, and I know we don't want to make cuts, but if we want to give room for growth while also staying within Mr. Hyde's point of not outstripping what the average household is feeling, it would be easy to look at this and say, okay, well, we can just kind of do what we want, and guess what? We could get away with it for probably 2 solid years, maybe 3. But you, to Mr. Hyde's point, if we're not disciplined now, we will run into that train sooner rather than later. So we're in the margins. I think we can probably move on here.
That's why we trace this, and if you notice, this is big, but that's a couple of reasons, because the assumption, the number 2, remember there was a salary adjustment. So if you notice suddenly a lot of this huge growth isn't as much because, for instance, now EMS is pretty much field, aren't you? ECC is a lot closer to field, so you're not gonna have those sheer numbers of budgetary turnovers of revenue, so that's why I think right now we're cautiously, somewhere where we're even.
Let's do this. I would like to, do you have an easy way to, and I know that these are baked in the spreadsheets, but do you have an easy way to toggle some of the assumptions of revenue growth?
You got about 90 revenues.
I know.
But we probably need to have another, if somebody wants to look at revenues, we can have another.
I mean,
Let's just go to the main revenue sheet and I can kind of discuss those.
Yeah, 'cause
We can go to the revenue sheets, but
because what I'd like to do is, what I would like to get at soon is bake in the changes that the departments have done and bake in any changes that we want to make
let's just
to
mention,
assumptions.
mention a few large ones. And
Okay.
then-
To Mr.
then I'll go
Long's
on
point
about
about
it.
another day, on the 15th, you're gonna have new numbers, right? Is that what
For
you,
around there for sales tax.
so that's not far away, today's the 8th. We're
Well,
gonna get
then
new
you-
numbers.
We can, I mean, but let's try to get to a balanced budget today. I mean, I
I
really
know, he
like
was
it.
just saying he wanted another day, and I was like, we're real close.
One thing I do want clarifications from the committee and Mr. Schoaf as the chairman. Historically, what we've done, we've got current year projections in there too. We get better and better numbers. Next year's are reasonable estimates. We generally don't change those, but these numbers right here that estimate your fund balance, I usually keep changing those until the last draft when you guys vote. Is the committee fine with us
Yes,
continuing that process?
absolutely.
It gets you a more accurate fund balance to
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
Few things I can tell you about it, just some quick assumptions. Property tax. We've been almost at 98, I did 97.5, last year I had 97, we've had a long enough trend of 97.5, I actually picked that up. The problem you've got, if everybody remembers discussion, we had a reappraisal, there was about $1.4 million worth of appeals, I baked all the appeals in as being negative. We know that's not true, some of them's been picked up, but there may be appeals next year we don't know about, so I just kept with the 1.4 county-wide. Not a huge number. And the assessor's back here, maybe we'll talk later. He's seen several of those positively. I got him to pull the numbers. For me, I got him to be in touch with the lady from the State Board of Equalization, where we could pull the numbers down. And I considered all those as lost appeals. So those are out of your numbers.
Yeah.
This one right here, we talked about that one. We are in this range here. We've been in these ranges, usually growing. I brought that back up to this range. Talking to, which is true, and you can go back and trace it, that hotel motel tax goes up and down like crazy based on whatever anybody wants to do. The understanding from the guy that's actually running the department is he thinks the losses are based on the presidential election starting to turn around quickly. So mine is, I think, the most prudent, because we're pretty conservative on a lot of other numbers, is actually run with that one. That's one we talked about. Your business tax, that's a very conservative number. It follows, if you look here, if you follow the pattern, it's a very conservative pattern. It's based on your average trend. And because we do have concerns next year, I think I brought the trend down for probably about 2 or 3%. Is the overall trend, like 97% of trend, not 97% total. I don't have them all in my head. Building permits, one, if you look, I'm estimating the same the 2 years, but it is a huge uptick. Two, you guys are on the new, or whatever the schedule is. So it automatically has some upticks, which did happen in this year, they were automatically set in. But if you look at the overall number, it's historically high. This year, I did not, by any means, bring it down from where I think you're gonna be. There's a push to slow you down, but my thing is there's two things at play. One, you are growing about 2% population. We all know there's tons of developments out there. And then the number two issue you've got, you do have $41 million worth of reserves. So if you was short, I don't know, $100,000 on that, it's not gonna significantly impact you in the size of your budget.
David?
Yes,
the
sir.
Permits, does that only county permits, or does that include municipal?
That's the county permits.
Only county permits?
Only county, Municipal has their own permits, but we do get adequate facilities tax countywide.
Is that part of permits?
It's not part of permits, it's a tax.
I mean, is it in that dollar?
No, it is over, we can look at sales tax in just a minute if you would like.
Okay.
Well, I've got those very conservative, but remember, they're over debt service, and your adequate facilities tax that we have in the county can only be used for a couple of purposes. School renovation, construction, or debt related to school. Right now, we have it all for debt related to school. That's where it all sits over debt service.
By the way, we don't wanna move that.
You needed to pay the debt unless you're gonna be.
Yeah, on the planning commission, I'm just not seeing that many permits, so it's.
They are coming through, and we can talk to you, he's upstairs in the building.
A lot of them are administrative plan
That's-
probably approved.
That's true, that's true.
And there were some changes a couple years back. You started picking up pools because you're actually sending people out. So you started charging for pools. Plus you have a schedule based on the code. So the code schedule changed based on the prices. So it was set in years ago. So it's what you need to do to try to keep your fees covering your service.
Yeah.
That's part of it, but a lot of this is to do, you've got a population growth that's about 2%. Used to average about 1.75. So you sped up on your growth of the actual population. These are your fines and fees. They're all over the place. If you go back in 2019, remember the court shut down. You do have a new judge, and everybody's talking about putting more revenues, but my only concern is if the judge is handling a backlog, when you get the backlog, we don't know where the true, where it's reasonably at. So I'm reasonable. Do I think these are undershot? I'm about 98% sure those are undershot. But my problem is, because of COVID, there's backlogs we're picking up that's still going through the system. We've got a new judge to speed up the backlog. So if you look at these numbers, they're very skewed because of two things. COVID shut them down. So you had backlogs, everybody's picking them up, and it's still slowing them down. Now they've got the judge that's gonna speed them up, but once they catch up, where are you gonna be? Is they catch up more this year or next year? These numbers look
Spread
good.
out.
I'm thinking they're gonna be spread, but I think the majority's been hit this year, a lot of it. So this year, I think it's gonna be more normalized to, see how big that one is?
Yeah.
I have it right in here still because I like it cautiously
It's probably
wait.
that's probably more like 270.
You don't have a trend.
Yeah.
So mine, I'm very conservative. We can go through, I can show you the trends on these, I don't know what, 90 revenues, and we can go through.
To me, the simplest one is if you scroll up.
Patient charges,
Up. If you look at property tax, you've already put that in, the 50.
They're in there. We added them as a flat amount. I'll show
So,
the
but
trend.
you pulled out, what, 1.4 million?
1.332637 times 3.
So you could probably put a plus 250,000 in there and be very safe.
One, I could go back to
I
this.
think you could
Well,
probably-
I could go back and look at the assessor, and we could look at those appeals again. But the issue being is, the assessor don't know what the appeals are gonna be for next year. It's better to leave those appeals in to keep you guys safe, because just like, our commissioner here was talking about, sales tax. And when she's talking
I mean,
about
I
sales
get why you're
tax,
doing it.
if we're really conservative on property tax and sales tax does take, nosedive south, then, we'll still pick a lot of up in schools because they have quite a bit of property tax.
Yeah.
I think it's Commissioner Boyd mentioned that. Was that correct?
That's my name, yeah.
Well, no, I'm making sure it's not Commissioner. I was trying to think of sales tax.
All right.
No, it was,
So, I mean, look, this could be a huge exercise. What I'm trying to get at here is,
I'll just go through 3 or 4 meetings if you want me to, right?
yeah, just do the big ones and then, because let's see what we could potentially find with a consumption change.
2019 killed the county here. We've had an upward trajectory for EMS forever. It's been recovering since we're here. We think this year you're gonna meet revenue projections. Several years you haven't. Talking to our EMS director based on his current calls, and he said probably even higher than that, but conservatively, he felt comfortable in those numbers. So, I work with these departments too, based on the calls we've got. We'll keep going down. If you look at several of them, if you notice, they're not exactly, this was one we talked about earlier when it came in last year. If you look at the note, there was a discussion, there was gonna be additional people coming in for probation and an additional fee, but that never happened, so we did decrease that by 195. I think,
That's probably-
our law director and the judge, and I don't know if the judge discussed it any, but the law director did. He did not have the probation last year, but he's got it this year.
Was there a specific item you were asking about? or
Oh, no.
Just that I've got it now?
You've got it now,
Yeah.
but the additional, what we're seeing right now, the additional, see, you have a for-profit and then a county probation. My understanding was they kind of divide those based on the amount of work that's out there, amount of capacity. We increased an employee to pick up more capacity to do more classes, but what I'm seeing right now, you haven't increased the number of probation. So you picked up the employee, but no additional cases.
And there's 2 factors. I've been talking to the judges about this, about getting everything online or onboarded to the probation side. And actually the number of classes that job was set up for have decreased significantly. Those charges have. And then I'm just waiting on, this is fresh conversation on getting all of the the contracted work back over to the probation department, so it's in flux. I don't know what those numbers will project at.
This really large number here is a 68% of their expenditures, it's a flow through. If the expenditures aren't expensed, the revenues don't come, so it's a zero sum except for the 32%. These are all your constitutional
I
laws.
just like to clarify, is that what the cities pay for their share?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just clarification, thank you.
Go on down, these are, I feel are all conservative. We can revisit any of them you'd like to. This flows through from the state, it's for the law enforcement training supplement, and it flows directly to expenditures, dollar for dollar. It may go up or down a little bit, but it's based on the number of people that qualify. And then we got a lot of grants. This is the amount that you guys get for state based on the number of SRO employees, so that's another large number. This one is DGA, it's the same thing, it's 100% flow through grant we talked about. TVA sharing, this is one that's historically been up, but this year it's actually down, and it's in lieu of taxes from Tennessee Valley. So what I do on that one, I usually estimate next year what we're receiving this year because it's all over the place. That was based on where we were going last year, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Prisoner board, same thing of what I'm seeing on the current capacity, and when I talked to the sheriff, they thought it was gonna be pretty stable. Not a lot of newer, older losses.
What was, can we go back up?
That's for state prisoners.
100,000.
Where are we
Oh, I'm
looking?
sorry, it's a fall grant, I see. I was just wondering, there hasn't been anything in the past, we budgeted 100, we're still budgeting 100, but we have no activity in the past.
That is the
What that?
broadband ready.
So it's new?
Well, not really. It's a broadband ready grant. It's down in Portland. For a better word, it was sent up to finance in November, December when you sent everything up. We've been working on it. We ran into some issues about the way the grant's written and bid. So we're working on bidding it, reworking it, and then getting it workable, but we've got to get approval of the state for the changes, so we don't think it's going to be expended or I think it's received to next year, but I can't remember what click on that bid. We're only receiving it next year, expended. That's some stuff you ran into. I'd have to look and see. We're not planning to receive the money to next year, but I can't remember if we're going to expend the money this year or carry it over. It'll be over in your other budget. We can talk about it.
It just caught my eye, couldn't see what it was, that there was nothing there. That's-
100%, 100% flow through. We're working on the grant as quick as we can upstairs. Tire disposals, the flow through, that's over at your resource authority. They dispose of the tires. The grant has to go through the county. The state pays us, and we pay it on over to the resource authority. It's where your provider brings the old tires. This is the Hendersonville remod. That's the one I was talking about earlier. That's making your Delta skewed to our commissioner back here. That's the 2.7. All these expenditures we're estimating we're going to have POs and stuff over here, but we're not going to receive the revenue over there. Because when we do a PO, to tie up your money, we show it as a budgetary expenditure, but we don't receive the revenues that we claim. I mean, under modified accrual, any revenue received in these funds have to be received within like a general revenue about 30 days, property taxes. For a grant or grant type, 60 days. That's our policy. Pills, these are all small, but if there's any that's anybody's in particular concern, because we could spend we could pull up the sheets and spend 3 or 4 days on this, but is there any particular revenue you would like me to look at?
Well, that's the thing.
Other than adequate facility.
I would be interested in, maybe it makes sense to go and, we can do this one of two ways. We can look at where we're at after we bake in the changes from the departments and then come back here. Or if you have, because I made that one suggestion, you had it already, that if you have any places where you think we could pick up, 400, 500,000 between them, that, with a reasonable change of assumption, that we can do that.
I can reasonably change assumptions to pick it up, because two things you gotta remember. If I do that and you don't meet the revenues and it's coming out of your fund balance,
Yeah.
in 2000 it was $41 million.
Yeah, no.
You're not exactly gonna be in bad shape.
Oh, no, I know that, but I also
You would be
I don't
fine.
want that blue line to dip either.
Right.
We wanna be, we're talking about between what they're bringing in and a change here. I think we're looking at a change here of, $400,000. It's half a penny. So, what we can do, maybe this is the right way to go about, because what we're trying to get here, is bake in what has been brought. And then, if we're within $500,000, we could give you the leeway to go and make some small changes and just point out to where those are. Maybe that's the right way to progress. Does anybody have a problem with that?
Everybody's fine, I'm sorry. Discuss two more revenues.
I had a question, and it kind of flows back to Mr. Hyde's point about the growth. And there are several line items that we have that are new line items that we haven't had in the past. When I was going through, I saw new, I don't know, they're not 400,000, but we do have new line items. And before I'd asked, the ask went out for everybody to cut deeper. And I was just wondering if we could look at the new line items that have never been there before.
Well,
Before
they're baked into the,
They're in there right now.
they're in there.
But we can go to them if she.
I mean, were you
But-
suggesting like we adjust them up or down, or?
Well, I just don't know what they are. I mean, there's some in there that they're just there, and we've asked people to go back and cut it.
Well, right, but my point is that like, look, I'm trying to do it, but
It's not
they're.
400,000.
And they're already baked into you. So it's like, if they're already baked into to our overall revenues.
Well, it was part of the, I thought we were having an ongoing discussion.
I think what
I'm
she's-
okay with
it's-
that.
I think that's what she's saying, is she would like to evaluate new expenses first, which would be.
New expenses or new revenues?
Those new lines. what
The
she said.
new ones
The
that
new
we've never
expenses.
had, let's say,
No, new expenses. Oh, I
let's
thought
say
you meant new
somebody bought
revenues.
an
I'm sorry.
elephant, no, somebody bought an elephant, and, you know.
Yeah, that's
Before I
fine.
ask, EMS to cut more, I'd like to go look at.
All right, I mean, we can
That's all I'm
do
saying.
that.
Can I discuss the
Yeah, go
two
ahead.
revenues, and
I'm
then,
sorry.
if you're fine, then
Oh,
we
that's
can work, you want us to work with Ms.,
Well, let's do this. So we go
Well,
through the
wait,
two new
yeah.
revenues, and then because we can get to that, but I
Yeah.
know you had a plan to go through
All this, okay.
some of the changes, but if
Yeah,
you're
just,
good with
I was
it.
just saying before we.
Yeah, that's
call
fine.
it off.
but we can do either way. I can go through these emails and the changes,
Okay.
or we can go and approach brand new expenses before we even go
Let's
through.
let's go with the plan, show your revenues, let's go through the
Okay.
changes, and then we'll pick up the new expenses.
I can go either direction you want. Let's go up to pilot payment in lieu of taxes and discuss, because something's gonna look weird, it may be asked on the commission floor, and I can explain it. 100% we're doing this. Shit, it's got a big number this year.
I can see
It's
over
called,
your phone.
payment in lieu of
Go back to
taxes,
the
is what
board.
that's
I
called.
can't see.
Payment in lieu.
I know.
If you notice, we only budgeted 152, we've got 449, and only budgeted 106. The reason being is, there's a reason here. We received money from a Facebook payment. And I've been talking to our county law director. The IDB from Gallatin's arguing that they can do anything they want to. With my understanding right now, that's their argument, that they can do anything they
Who's
want
they?
to. The IDB in Gallatin, the Industrial Development Board, argument is that they can do anything they want to with the payment in lieu of taxes money from Facebook. They made us a payment this year based on the tax rate, which we deposited here.
How
That's
much
why-
was the original agreement?
Huh.
It's based
The
on, it's
share.
millions. It's
How much
based,
was the
Millions.
share to the county?
it's based on millions.
But
and-
there are, we will fight that in court, I'm gonna court all day with that.
If you, and we've got, and I'll send you a copy of the
Let's do
agreement.
that.
I've been,
Let's rock
I
that.
discussed that with,
We
our law
got a
director.
$40 million balance here, let's go to court and collect that, right?
But mine is, there's millions involved in that. That's the reason I did not put it into your
You
revenue.
put it in there and then and then we'll budget $100,000.
Well, two things I do, it's based on phasing in, so I have to know what phase they're in.
Well-
And he did this phase calculation, and I can't get a lot of data from him. I'm having issues getting data from him, let's put it that way.
Well, we'll.
I can back into their numbers.
That's millions of dollars of revenue.
And then another, just hit debt revenue on debt service fund. and
Oh, that is the
question.
shadiest thing.
Oh, you wouldn't believe
We've had
who
that
saw,
discussion
yeah,
for a
you should
while.
see how deep it goes shady.
Who is,
I'm not
who's
saying
in
that, I'm
charge
just
of that?
saying-
Who's in charge of that? Who's the president of that board?
I have no
You know,
idea.
when they put it in, they hired somebody, I believe,
I need a name.
to come, I gotta tell
All right,
you.
we'll
Well,
find
there's
a
a-
name on that one.
Which board are you talking about, Matt?
The Industrial Development Board of Gallatin.
Yeah.
Because they're wanting to argue that
They can argue
what
all
they
they
gave for
want.
donation is what
They
they're.
want to argue all they
It's
want
on,
because the
it's on the
court's
website, but,
We'll find
I
it.
think they did it legally.
I don't know, that contract says that they're in, basically for
They-
verbatim, you can maybe correct me, that they're responsible for how it's paid to the city and county. It doesn't say they can do anything else with it.
Well,
Yeah, this
it's not-
isn't in lieu of taxes
Right.
disbursement.
Here's the thing.
They're making that
Here's the
argument.
thing. I mean, look, we'll bake that in. We need to bake something in there a little
Okay.
bit, and that will be my little special project next year.
Okay.
Like, take me off of
We can-
all boards, and I'll just do that.
What I'll do is for the next budget, and we make a note, I'll calculate the amount it brought this year based on the tax rate.
How much did it go, do
redistribution.
we know how much that went to the city of Gallatin out of it?
Yeah, they sent it to me. I
How
can
much?
provide that to you. I don't have it on
Was
hand.
it, did you have a roundabout?
It made sense based on the tax rate. So basically, what they look like they did.
So we're getting we got an even cut.
I think we got materially.
It's pro
the correct
rata.
amount.
Okay, then that's cool.
But I think their argument is they don't have to pay it.
Well, then
Which
they-
makes me on the point where I don't necessarily feel comfortable
The
without you
day
guys
they
being aware
don't
of
is the
budgeting.
day we file in court.
Okay.
So.
Just note those and we'll handle that. Let's go over here to, debt service, if you can go down to adequate facilities taxes. This is your adequate facilities tax, Dave, Commissioner Klein. This is what I budgeted next year, that's what you got this year. That's conservatively the rest of the year because those things are all over the place.
Uh-huh.
That's your actual last year, so if we pull just a little sum there, Beth, let's show them what he's got. This is the right pieces it turns into. We've got a total of a little over $4 million. This year I conservatively estimated we've got 3.6, it's probably gonna be closer to the 4, and then next year, because we don't know, I've estimated 3.118. So to be honest, this number here is probably low, but it is very hard to estimate because the reason you got when the permits are first got is when they get there. So there's something in the pipeline that'll be received quite a bit before the actual construction's complete.
But it's actually dropping.
No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is your last actual year. I've taken this year because they're so volatile. I've taken that trend and I've moved it down quite a bit. And then because we do have concerns on tariffs and there was a push to slow down construction, I brought the number down again here. So that number is probably low, but it's based on a couple of factors. Number one is the tariffs could increase construction costs. And number two, there's been a push to slow growth, but at the same time, if you read the other day, there's discussions of lowering the interest rate. So we all know if they lower the interest rate, lowers your house payments, housing becomes more affordable. But if the tariffs increase, the cost of construction become less affordable, so they slow down. So we don't know where that's going, but I've been reasonably, for the best word, pessimistic on that. Just wanted to make everybody aware of that, because there was a question about it. And that's, unless somebody's got a particular revenue that they've got questions about.
I think we're good.
Okay.
So I think we'll move on now. Does anybody have any questions?
So what we got from the pilot on Meta Facebook, they did cut us a check last year,
And it was reasonable.
They cut us a check this year.
this year, and it was how much, 550?
Yeah, that was that was the difference of almost, just in the general fund, and I can get you the exact number, it's much more than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it was in line with what we would have expected.
If you could just remind, when we go to break, I can go up there
Okay.
and pull it.
Yeah,
out.
I'd love to see it, because that's one of those things
I only
that
mentioned it because we
constituents
have a
go
large
crazy over.
variance, but they did provide to us what they paid to the city of Gallatin, us, and they made a separate payment to the school department, but they
Okay.
were, my understanding of what they were communicating to us is that is a donation, and that they're not required to give it to us, that's why I'm very cautious.
They're gonna donate to their lawyers.
And the only other question, I just want to make sure I understand, is our property tax revenue went from 45.5 million to 50.5 million. That's about a 10% increase.
You moved 3 pennies from debt service, that's most of your increase, or a lot of your increase.
Oh.
Remember yesterday, if we click on there, click on that bit. Remember yesterday, or not yesterday, but
Last
on the
week.
first, yes.
The next
yes.
one.
I was here last night, late start. There's 1,126,367 times 3 moved over from debt service.
Oh, okay, so that's.
And remember the discussion, you had 14 million reoccurring extra dollars in debt and capital, which could be used as one to cover operational, because it's permanent property tax, pennies, or you can use it to, for future if you have more capital, or if you want to keep some debt capacity.
Okay.
That's the 3 most advantageous uses of those revenues.
So the vast majority of that difference is,
Not the vast, but a significant portion.
yeah.
And I can click over highway, because theirs hasn't changed, and we can tell you about what the growth was, if you want to see the actual growth, it's much smaller. But yeah, that's skewing your money.
Okay.
So again, bottom line, how much are we looking for?
Let's go click back on general fund stats. Oh. If you reasonably want to get your delta almost exactly the same as last year, you're looking probably at 955. If you want to get to where your fund balance is flat, you're probably already there based on the figures you moved. And that's based on a cautious revenues is the best way to put it.
So just humor me a minute, because I made this motion at the last meeting, and I realize it's a capital project. But when we're telling the sheriff's office, EMS, and these other departments to cut, and yet we're gonna spend, or allot, $2 million on a courtroom, and I know it's capital.
Yes,
I
sir.
made the motion to move it back into capital. What if we moved it back and moved 5 pennies over?
You would be in the green, for a better word. My best estimate, you'd be picking up fund balance.
But you would just be doing that for 1 year.
Just for a year.
But
Yeah,
that-
I get
but
it.
that
But we're
doesn't-
gonna go through the same exercise next year. I mean, we don't know what revenues are gonna be next year.
But yeah, but it is, but this is, we can argue about this, but here's the thing. You don't wanna start replacing one time with recurring. And that's exactly what that would do.
Well, that's what you're doing anyway with 3 pennies.
Well, no, because I'm going from recurring to recurring. I'm going from debt service, which is recurring, into capital, which is a holding bin, into, if you go from the extra, at the end of the day, those 5 pennies are coming out of debt service. Those 5 pennies trace themselves back to,
Well, the argument can be
recurring.
made every penny goes. it can
Yeah,
roll
I
back
mean,
to
you
debt
trace it, but the point is you're tracing it all back from recurring. So the idea that if I take this courthouse out of it, that I'm suddenly not gonna have an impact on my
My
long-term
argument
recurring.
is that I don't like prioritizing convenience over public safety.
Can I ask?
Go ahead,
I'll
get
have
The
you,
mayor,
and then I'll get
it's
you.
very important to this question, and the mayor John may know, have they approached you yet to sign the contract for the architect on that? It went through Gen Ops, we were trying to get it locked down, and they're gonna bring it to you. I don't know if it's made it to the mayor, we may already have it under architect. That's what I mentioned last time, it was going to Gen Ops the following Monday, and as soon as it got done, we were gonna try to lock it down and get it back to the mayor, and I don't know if it's made it all the way back around to the mayor yet, because I've got a lot of stuff going on.
I can tell you I've not signed off on it because it is still in flux.
Because if it's still in flux and he hasn't signed off, then we can wholeheartedly back out of that and not do the project.
Mr.
Without costing anything, we can do it anyway, just pay for the
Mr.
architect.
Klein.
On that note, the architectural fee is around 89,000. They reduced it 27,000. But that architect has also come back and said the estimate for the improvements is gonna be about $1.5 million rather than 2.
And I'm kind of cautious on it. He's saying $1.5 million, but everybody's been talking about one thing, we haven't bid it yet.
Right.
Tariffs and costs. But the only reason, to be fair, about why the architect's cheaper is we already had designs from the earlier architect, and that's one of them when I asked the project manager upstairs, one of my requests was, when you negotiate that before you bring it back to our mayor, we need to ask them to kick off the portion for design, because they're usually a percent of construction.
I still think it's a
Design,
high
this,
bid.
that, we already had design, so the fee went down because the design was already paid for, and they were willing to use
So
the
do-
design from the other.
Do you, I know we were talking about, we don't often try to take a ton of motions here, but do you want to try to make that motion again? I will go ahead. Do you want to make a motion to move pennies or do something?
Yeah.
What's the motion?
The motion is to claw back the $2 million that's allotted for the courtroom, put it back in capital, and move 5 pennies over.
So both of those?
Both of those in the
Okay.
same motion.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I can't second both of them combined.
I can't either. If you want to do one or the other,
Okay. I'll put the $2 million back in capital.
is there a second on that one?
Oh, I'll second that.
All right, so we have a second for that, and then we want, so we're on that. Let's discuss.
Oh, I have a
it.
question.
Go ahead.
Protocol. We have a committee of 7. Now, is it 4 to pass, or is it the majority of the city?
It's still 4 to pass.
I just want to clarify.
Eric, is it, I thought it was the president, I thought it was majority
But
president.
still,
Yeah, I
1,
think
2,
it's
3,
It'd be 3,
4,
wouldn't it?
5.
I just want to make sure.
It'd be majority president, I do believe.
Yeah, once you have a quorum, then
Okay,
it's
so
the
it's
majority.
just 3.
That's what I was
Okay.
thinking, I didn't want to
Okay.
contradict.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a question. If we defund that, if we claw it back, and I'm as bothered about it as Commissioner Harrison, the fact that we were forced into this position. And I think that the architectural fees are still high, and I think the improvement costs are still high. What is going to happen then? We've got a
I
judge.
think what we're saying is, we're trying to fund what we need to fund this year.
But
Let me speak for
Yes,
myself.
please.
My
Go ahead.
statement is that when we're asking the sheriff, EMS, to cut these positions, and yet we're turning around and building out a courtroom that is already drywall, as
Yes.
you stated. We are in effect saying to the public, to the average, because the average taxpayer does not understand capital money versus
Versus
recurring.
recurring, yeah.
They don't understand that.
Yeah.
What they hear is, you're cutting sheriff's deputies and paramedics for convenience sake. That's what they're hearing. So, what I'm saying is, let's punt it for a year and take a look at the numbers next year. That's all my argument is.
So, what I'm gonna do, hey, did you have another comment? Because I'm gonna get my own cue if you, go ahead.
Well,
No, I'm getting
yeah,
cue, Mr. Quan.
there is another place for it, though. That we could get the sheriffs all the money that we clawed out last week. And it has to do with the improvements of that police station, or the sheriff's station that was vacated by the 3 judges.
Let's finish. I'm gonna-
Yeah,
I'll get you.
so currently the sheriff is in about 3,000 square feet, his entire administrative staff. With the amendment that Mr. Harrison made at the last commission meeting, we're giving him an additional 23,000 square feet. I believe he doesn't need all that, and he sure doesn't need to improve it at $190 a square foot. We could claw some of that $4.5 million, give the sheriff everything he needs for cars, new officers and everything, and
Okay.
still do the judicial.
So here, let me respond to this and then I'll get you.
Okay.
So a couple things. One, and I'm not trying to pick on Mr. Harrison, but I am a citizen and I've always been a citizen. And as an elected official, I don't think that I'm smarter than the average citizen. And I think the average citizen understands a bank account and they understand one-time savings account and they understand their income and expenses that are recurring. Just like, and I think that is not a concept that is beyond the average citizen here. And we want to calculate the average citizen. The average citizen is not an idiot, and is probably smarter than most of us sitting here. So I think they very much understand that recurring revenues, that spending taking a one-time capital expense versus a recurring to pay for a salary that you will then bake into a maintenance of effort recurring year over year is not a difficult thing to understand. And because I recognize that, citizens are smart and they understand these things, I cannot support, I don't agree with the argument because it's not a good argument, in my opinion. I'm not trying to pick here. I don't think it's a strong argument that, hey, if we kill this courthouse, we can pay for $2 million extra towards sheriff's and EMS. Yes, you can pay for it 1 year, and then we got to pay that. So that's 5 pennies goes over. What about the next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that? Whatever we move, where I look, anything that I would be able to support, I want to know that I can pay for it year over year over year over year with the highly conservative estimates that Mr. Long has. So we can talk about finance and funding or not funding the courthouse, and I'm fine to talk about whether we need that or not. But that is materially not taking a $2 million one-time fund is not going to shore up the recurring asks that the sheriff and EMS have. It's just not. That's factually untrue.
Are sheriff cars, are those recurring or are those capital?
Those are capital.
Those are capital.
Those are capital.
That's what I want to go into. What we're talking
Yeah,
about.
so I'll hand it to you, Mr. Long.
Can I ask something about the
Go ahead.
police cars and stuff? Right now, in opioid, half of our money could go to police cars and ambulances because the opiate prices wore out our tires. Are we doing any, are we taking care of any count, you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
you guys is the opioid.
I don't know if you could tell them what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was the opioid committee, there's two pots of money for a better word, there's more restricted and restricted, and they can be used for certain purposes. Right now, you've got the
We haven't
opioid
been
committee.
hitting that. We could hit that for ongoing operational expenses for these emergency vehicles because we're expending more resources.
And we can send up the amounts from the opioid committee, what you've got over there. I don't think it's a significant amount because right now the problem we're running into is they gave us estimates for the next 20 years and those estimates are in flux because one, there was new defendants at times, but now there's bankruptcies. So bankruptcies have dropped, and Mr. Sittler can correct me if I'm wrong, bankruptcies has dropped some of the payments down and out for our opioid. No,
Yeah,
some of
oh,
the-
yes, that's why whenever we get a disbursement or a report or summary, they are very adamant about letting us know that what we're telling you are hypotheticals and projected based on things not changing today, and they've been changing and filing left and right.
Yeah, there's been bankruptcies by several large, or a couple of large pharmacies.
Yes.
Mr. Hyde and then Mr. Harrison.
Increased it.
As a person who argued here the other day for not cutting the courtroom, I've thought about it a lot, and it was a close vote, 4-3. The committee voted. I did not get to vote, but I argued to keep it in there. I think Mr. Harrison is on, quite frankly, and I'm like you, I hate to say this, I like to have the money in the pocket, and I see what you're saying, but a lot of things can happen between now and next year as far as revenue and other things. And we're not talking about a significant amount of money that we couldn't recover from the decision that we made. But I think Mr. Harrison is on target. It would solve our problem this year. It would give us a year to continue to work on this courtroom. I know that Mr. Klein is kind of a miracle worker at finding ways of solving what were really expensive situations. We'd have a year to work on it. So I really am supportive of what Commissioner Harrison is
Is there any,
saying.
is there any other, well, you go ahead.
Yeah, just as a point, just keep in mind that the motion is just to claw back the
Correct.
money. It's not to claw, because we wouldn't, I didn't get a second on the first part.
That's fair.
So the argument is
fair.
really moot.
So-
So it's just clawing and putting it back.
Ms.
So-
Boyd and then Mr. Klein, then we'll take a vote on it.
I have one more element to add to this. So the new judge that we're talking about, she's helping them over in Chancery and Criminal Court. I've been keeping an eye over in general sessions, and I have to tell, we got 2 general sessions judges. I won't tell you, maybe I talked to both of them, maybe one. We're very close on their dockets to getting another general sessions judge. Now, I don't know if y'all know that.
No.
Well, she is a hybrid. This new judge is a hybrid.
Is she going to cross over
So
to
we're
general
good.
sessions
No.
also?
General sessions.
She cannot, lawyers
Yeah.
say
You guys
she
would have to agree with
can't.
that.
So I just want you to know that,
You'd
I
have to agree
think that
to
in as the sheriff says crime goes up, we're looking at yet another courtroom. So if we won't push this off, we got another one in the, at the
You have
door
to-
coming in.
So-
You have to agree to the new judge, though.
But here-
We, well,
You may not agree to that.
here's the
well, if they're
thing.
full, they're full, I think.
Okay.
I don't know, I just wanted to add that to the,
And-
a
and
little
I-
long-term planning.
I was here at the last discussion.
I appreciate the comment, and I'm gonna try to bring us a little bit back into order here. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. And I just wanna say, we have a courtroom. So because the motion is just on the one thing, we have an empty courtroom, we have an empty floor, we have a need for expanding services. We know that inputs for construction are only going up. Because this is totally decoupled, and we have a very good understanding that this is totally decoupled from recurring. The question is about, we know this is a need to do now, we know things are gonna be more expensive now, we know that that putting this, clawing this money back is not going to help recurring. So if we know something's gonna be more expensive, we know we have the need for it, we know per Ms. Boyd's point that we're gonna potentially have more after that, I see no need to kill this quarter, and I'm gonna be against that motion, but Mr. Long.
One thing I want to talk about is make sure we're all looking at the capital projects correctly. Okay. The capital projects funds has a couple of portions. The first one, we've got some bond money left from the Resource Authority. We segregate that, and then you also have grants. We segregated that. So all we're talking about is the local amount from property taxes. They're reoccurring like any other pennies. The whole history of this, the county had a capital projects fund when I got here in 2009, okay? It was based up of one-time transfers. In 2011, it was decided that, the county had a lot of needs and no money. So at that time, the interest rates had moved around and we refinanced a bond, had some savings, and this, the savings on the actual payments, plus it shortened up the bonds, and the county took the funds and moved those pennies over into this capital projects fund. So this is how it was created. The thought process at the time and the discussion was, you have all these operating funds. It's very easy for somebody to get in a tight spot. They come and eliminate all their cars or ambulances. It makes their budget look good, but you can't see their capital. So that's the only purpose. The rule on capital projects, once you levy it in there, is for capital projects purposes. And what the purpose is determined by GASB, Government Accounting Standards Board, because we're required by state law. And I think you were on the email because it was a good question from Dylan. We've had a policy for years of two things, because one, you don't want to violate your tax levy, so you have to use it for capital projects purpose.
Right.
What it basically says, and it was a Q&A under the codification, which is the GAP for. So what it says is you do not have to capitalize every item that goes into your capital projects fund. It just has to be capital-like. So in other words, we've always tried to follow with capitalizable items over 7,500. So if you put a $3,000 item in there and it was capital of nature, we can't do that, but it can't be operating. But the whole thing of talking about one time versus two, to be clear, all the money in your capital projects money is reoccurring funds of the whole, but the thing is, you've got reoccurring capital coming, so you've got to decide, do you want to put it over in capital operating? But the only reason for the segregation was to guarantee that the money wasn't mixed into operations. The same reason Toby's got the vehicle over here. They raised what was at the time a penny, and they wanted to guarantee there'd be equipment money from now on versus it going into operational at some point, because if you levered it into the highway fund, it could be any time be used for salaries.
So
But that's its whole
we got a
purpose.
vote on the floor. We got a motion on the floor. Any other comments before we take a vote, Mr. Klein?
Who determines what goes in capital for one time, and who determines what's recurring?
It's basically capital-like or recurring. Salaries are reoccurring items. You're gonna.
Oh, yeah,
You buy a car, it's one time. You buy a piece of equipment, it's one time. The rule we followed at the county for many years to make sure is a very strict rule. One, when you levy the pennies over into capital projects, you have to use them by that purpose. A citizen can bring suit for levying for one person's tax another. Anybody could. So you've got to use for capital. Well, the county's required to follow GAP. GAP is determined by GASB, Government Accounting Standards Board. What they say, we follow that rule. Our rule is more strict. So what it says is, it said on one of the Q&As, which is another codification, which is GAP, rule of the strength, it said that it has to be capital-like items or capital in nature. In other words, you're buying a $3,000 piece of equipment because we don't capitalize it. You can still pay it through there, but it needs to be in capital in nature. It needs to be equipment. It don't need to be salaries, insurance, gasoline, electricity, something that, like, if I buy this table this year, I don't have to lay off an employee or shut down a building not to buy a table next year. That's what they're
Right,
saying.
but we have a pot of money that's recurring every year.
That's because you levy it through pennies of property taxes we're talking about. If you move it out,
Yes.
it won't be. So you got to determine how much you're going to leave here, because you've got two things. You've got a lot of capital money. Okay, think about it. But you've got about 16 million of that 30 that's got to go directly back over to debt service because you got a 11-year structure. What's left over, when we move it back, is going to have to fund, one, your capital. Number two, any debt you may want to issue, may or may not. Everybody's pretty much against debt right now. Or plug that hole. Or number three, you can move any of that excess that you don't need for those two over to operational. What Mr. Shope's trying to say is, anything we move to operational is going to shrink capital, debt capacity, or future capital, because these are recurring pennies and they only grow at certain rates. That's what we're saying. There's three things in play here and two pots. So once you move the pot into the general fund, it can be used for any allowed general fund operations. By leaving it over in capital, you are restricting it for capital life. By leaving it over debt service, you're restricting it for debt. Or if you move it over to your road superintendent, it's for highway. The only reason we can't pay highway from general is because we have a levy specific for highway. But we can pay capital for him. But does that make a little more sense, or do I need to?
Is there a percentage of the $1.48 that is automatically allocated to capital?
You mean the $1.42?
Or $1.42, I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, what I was showing you earlier, historically, we put about $5 million in there, but you've grown. So there's not a match based on the tax levy you do each
So
year.
roughly 4.5 pennies.
Yeah, that's what you've been doing historically. But each year, we've had excess debt, we moved money over. Last time we needed excess, we moved a significant amount of pennies one year for debt service. That's how you did the countywide communication radio system. I think it was about $5 or $6 million. So the county here, which is a really good thing, you try to build up excess in your capital to pay future capital versus borrowing. If we click over here to capital, it's very important. Go down there. Two things, and keep going on down. Two things in play. Let me get my pointer. It's easy for people to see if my fingers are not in the way. We got two things in play. This right here, Mr. Ellis, you gave me 19.5. We're estimating he's requesting revenues will be $4 million. We use another 5 here, correct?
Yep.
We understand that two things. This is to fix a backlog, but he's also facing inflation, so there's a concern what happens after that. Well, you've got this amount right here. The less you have to spend or move that amount, it's going to be bigger. If you can hold on to it, then when Mr. Ellis runs out of money here, you still have the option to give him more money, or say you do come through and there's a large construction project that's $10 million versus borrowing money, you could use that money. So like we're talking about the projects, any one of those that you do or fund takes money out of that. Anything that you transfer takes money out of that. And then the other thing is if you do say, hey, I need to do a school, which we think it's several years out, I think the last one took about $7 million a year, and the rates were much lower, and the schools are getting bigger. So $7 million a year, you'd have to stop them quite a bit off here again if you wanted that kind of capacity. But at the same time, you're growing in property tax, and we've got those on our long-term plans, and that's why we were asking for schools. But that's just to kind of give you the mile-high view of how the things move around.
Just one more comment I want to make too is, keep in mind, yeah, we're talking about schools, we're talking about a courtroom. I'm gonna tell you somebody else that needs another building at some point. Toby Ellis, if you've ever been over there.
His main office.
That whole area has been there for a long time. So when we're talking about
Now,
capital
if you wanted
projects.
to make a motion to appropriate that $2 million for a facility for Mr. Ellis, I think that's a more fair.
Let me make it.
Because
Well, I mean, my motion is just put it into capital. We can always.
Here's
do that.
two things
If you would
gotta
like to
think
make an
about.
amendment, I'll be willing to second it.
This is two things you really got. You got this money here, and the more you can put in there, you can be able to use for things like Toby's or whatever you need to, and then go over to the general fund. And this is another one we need to make sure we remember. Go to that. Go to the graph. It's on the stats page. Go over here to this. Also remember, the more you have up here, the more you have up here, you've got for two things. If you have an issue like revenue shortfalls, or if you want to do a one-time expenditure. You could right now safely do a one-time expenditure from here. But I wouldn't do anything reoccurring, to shrink it like salaries, because you want a long-term view.
It's all about the
of what you
trajectory,
got.
man.
I get it.
It's.
And when you see your long-term planning sheets
Let's
a week from
try
now,
to close this
we'll
up
look
soon,
at
Mr.
first.
Klein, and then we're gonna try to take it over.
I would, Judge Gay came in Monday night and he sat here for 3 hours and made an appeal because he said they're leapfrogging and it's kind of a mess. And I think the one at this table who would know more about that than anybody is the mayor. I was wondering if he would be willing to chime in on his opinion.
Do you have a comment, Mr. Mayor, on this courtroom?
They do have to juggle the courtrooms. It is an inconvenience to them. My bigger concern is making sure that public safety is priority, because I think that's our role. Our role is to make sure that the citizens are safe. And, you talked about the courtroom, it's not that the citizens are more ignorant than we are and don't understand. It's all about perception. And the perception is that we're cutting public safety, and you walk into these beautiful courtrooms, and and we've said from the beginning that that courthouse was too big, but here we are, And we're finding out that maybe it's not too big, but we do have to figure out what our priorities are. And I think right now, I think our priorities are
And
public
I'm not
safety.
saying never build it out. I'm just saying, I'm thinking plenty
Well,
per year.
And I think, and to be quite honest with you, I think what we're $1 million, I mean, we've got $1 million.
We do,
We have it.
we do.
And so why do we have to cut public safety just so we can say that we cut the budget?
Well, Mr. Mayor, so we can have that one, I think that's when we're on the
And
curve.
we'll talk about that more.
Any other comments on this one? Okay, all in favor of Mr. Harrison's motion to strike the $2 million from the capital, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Oh, so we have, 3 all opposed? No. Oh, just-
I'm abstaining,
Okay,
I'm not sure.
so, motion carries, so $2 million
How many?
is,
How'd that go down again?
What three voted for?
Miss Boyd, Miss Bergdorf, and Mr. Harrison all voted to strike the
Break, can we let's call them know
Yeah, we'll take a break right
to
after
see the
this.
movement on.
So we're gonna cancel this, we'll cease it now, well, this has to,
We'll see some movement on it, but if it's not gonna be funded, we need to hold movement on these
all right,
projects.
so we'll see, so we'll do that.
The
and then-
mayor's uncomfortable too to sign.
I
That's
know
what
we
I told
voted,
you.
but how much
So I
have we
agree.
invested in this? You say you got a call upstairs to Scott right now.
Hey, we took a vote.
We
I
did,
know.
you already had the,
We can, you know,
I can tell you where
I'm
we're
on the
at.
winning side, I can reconsider.
I can tell you
Okay.
exactly where you're at.
I've been reading my Robert's rules.
Okay.
I can tell you where you're at if you want me to answer. Well, you had the design, that was back when you did the original courtroom. We have been in negotiations with the architect, trying to get it through Gen Ops and then back to the mayor. Right now, the mayor said he hasn't signed. We were trying to move that direction based on the movement from the budget and Gen Ops last week, which is good the mayor was uncomfortable, because my understanding right now is nothing. You other than the original design that we're holding. The design was from the original architect, they didn't want to move forward with us, so we got another architect willing to take their designs and decrease their fees. We'll just stop the project until this is settled, and then if it's settled as it is today, then we'll stop, and if it gets re-brought up, we re-engage them. That's all we'll
And
do.
just as a point of clarification, it can always be added on the floor if you get 13
So-
votes.
That's what I'm saying, we're stopping for
is
now.
there- So we're kinda out of order right here.
Exactly.
Is there a, motion to reconsider, is there anything? Okay, so it's
No, let's do
done.
that later.
All right, well, well, right now, we're gonna stop work.
I was just thinking
I like
question.
that.
So we're gonna stop work, and, please take that, and we're gonna do a 5-minute break. All right, thank you.
So, nobody else has to take my fudge, but
I mean,
Jamie would
we
make
can
sure
do that. Let's just have you
Shannon.
email it. Yeah, let's do that.
That's fine.
That's a key thing I didn't catch.
I was doing insurance.
Hey, okay, so we're about to get moving on. I do believe that Mr. Harrison, he intimated to me that he wanted to make a motion, before we move any further. So, Mr. Harrison, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would propose, and I will move an additional penny from capital. So we go from 3 pennies to 4 pennies.
To the general fund?
To the general fund.
Okay, so we have a motion to go from 3 pennies to 4 pennies, from capital to the general fund. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay, any discussion on it? I'm gonna make one comment, and then I'll take the vote. I'm of the opinion, I just wanna be clear here. We've talked about this at the beginning. We've got, a little more than 14 pennies, take out 3, we got about, we could be close to 12. So, given a little bit of additional growth in sales tax, I think I've said I'm very comfortable that that's for a 5-year plan, that we are not in deficit spending, and, you add, some additional kind of triggers we can pull, we're looking at 6, maybe 7. That's because I'm just doing simple math. 12 divided by 4 is, 12 divided by 3 is 4, add 1, that's 5. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So I just want to be clear that we are shortening our window if we were to do this year over year, which is fine. I just want to be very honest about what we're doing here. So that's the motion. Any other discussion on this?
Is that modern math?
That's Merrill High math. That's what they're teaching at your school there, sir.
I will just make one comment.
Oh, go ahead, Mr.
Oh, she might have been in
She
queue
was
first.
She was, go ahead.
I just want to say, I'm going to abstain because I think waiting till the 15th until we get those sales tax numbers in that are showing a trend down from last month would make me more comfortable in looking at this, and it's 10 days.
And my
that would-
comment is
And that's
similar.
where I'm at.
Yeah, and similar to what I had said during the break, is I'm betting on Sumner County.
Okay.
I'm betting on us, and you know, I just think that that's kind of where we are, and, so yeah, I'm comfortable with that motion.
All right, well, I'm gonna be against it here, but if it passes and we move and we build the budget off of it, I will support this budget because I'll support the will of the committee. But at this point, I'm gonna vote against it. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Okay,
Abstain.
and one abstention. Okay, motion carries. So, Mr. Wine, I think with that, we can make the changes. I think that none of the requested, additional cuts will need to happen.
No, but I think there's two,
So I just want to be clear here for everybody who's waiting, just because I think we got a lot of folks. We can publish a budget now with that penny, we'll be able to do so. None of the additional requests for additional cuts are gonna be necessary with that penny over. There will be, I think, if folks would like to stay, I think there will now be some potential margin to recapture some of the previous cuts potentially. But if you were here worried about additional cuts to your department, then you can go because that will not be necessary now.
I think there's a few questions, those like radios with EMA, he may want to stay for that.
Okay.
About your radio fees, Ken, we want to get those on the budget.
Yes, sir. However you want me to pay that.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. Just any other notes for folks?
Radio, that's.
Libraries.
The library wanted made a request to put somebody.
And election commission, but they're not here.
Election commission, we have the benchmarking if you want to
So
request they come in.
let's do this, now that we've got that out of the way, actually, the libraries are here, let's go ahead and do the library.
I think there was only one or two that made a request, and you got one of your board members here too, and I'll pull out the emails I received.
I'm gonna, let's let you go over, and then I'm gonna make a motion to, suspend the rules to allow the libraries to speak. Suspend the rules.
Yes.
Do I have a
You
second?
just want to let them,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
maybe more advantageous to let them speak, since I've got their emails, but they can actually probably explain their needs better than me just reading the email. I have one from their older libraries, and she's want to know on the document.
Wherever they start, whichever one.
Which one are you talking about?
Any of them. They all in there. I just want to flip to the page, I'm sorry.
It's toward the back of the general.
Are you talking about the Capitol?
Oh, she's talking about
Well, if
operational.
you're, I was wondering, look at
Operations.
the
I'm
numbers
asking
if you're
what you're
talking about
talking
it.
about.
I'm sorry.
Can we do them on the screen?
Okay, do them on the
We
screen.
usually
I
do them on
got
the
it,
screen, but I
I got
can
it.
do them here too if you want me. If they start on page 73,
Thank you.
you want to look at the hard doc.
I just,
I've got I got an email from Millersville, Portland, Gallatin, and Westmoreland, so I don't know if they're all here or not. I believe Millersville was requesting to add a little bit of money back into the part-time as one of their discussions, so I don't know if she's here or not.
Discussion.
I don't know if the Millersville.
Is Millersville here?
She's not.
Okay.
Give me-
Ms.
give me
Bergdorf,
Tara.
you're familiar with the.
We're gonna let Kristen Lemus speak. She's the interim director at Hendersonville Library. There were questions last week from Commissioner Lambert and Commissioner Boyd about the difference in her data processing price, and they wanted some discussion about, or information about the difference between the TLC and the Atrium, because the other libraries use Atrium.
Yes, so I actually have a handout where I made kind of like a comparison against TLC, Atrium, and then a third party that I found. If you guys would like to take a look at it, I would be more than happy to pass that out to everybody. But,
Just take one pass around there.
yeah. And I appreciate you guys asking these questions because I'm very new to this role, as I'm sure everybody's aware, so it
I
gave
can,
me
like,
an
flick them
opportunity
around.
to kind of look through and ask the same question to
I need
myself
one more.
versus just, well, this is the way it's always been done, kind of thing. thing, so let me reevaluate some stuff. What I actually found is while TLC is our current, they are the most expensive option that I was able to find out there. And there are some drawbacks that staff are not 100% happy with. Everything I'm gonna talk to is from a staff perspective in a day-to-day, like, operation type thing. We have issues where it'll bug out, we lose files, patron notifications don't always go through, so if somebody has an overdue book or a hold's ready, they're not always notified of that, and we have to constantly be going through and checking it.
Is that the current?
That's the current one that we're on right now.
And that's.
The
what's the-
TLC.
Oh, TLC, okay.
Yes.
Got it.
The benefits I saw to keeping that one is we are coming up on our busiest time of the year with summer reading, and staff is already fully trained on this one. However, there's not a whole lot more I could find outside of that. So I looked into Atrium more. I was able to talk to Andy over there. He is the sales representative that's been working with all the other libraries in our county. They are considerably cheaper. On the very last page, there's a price comparison. Atrium is that middle one that is in the orange. So they're gonna charge us to switch completely over just over 10 grand, whereas TLC is charging us to keep where we're at 20 grand. So that would be cutting that in half. They have a lot more options that we could do, and
Who's they?
Atrium.
Atrium is, okay.
Yes. The only downsides we really found were that we're gonna have a really quick turnaround. They usually don't recommend switching systems this quickly. They would like a 90-day to a 6-month process. But if we're wanting to do it before the next TLC bill is due on July 1st, we would kind of have to look into that. They said it's possible, but it will be a little bit hectic and stressful. We could also talk to TLC about extending that contract to see if they'd let us switch in January or not do a full year and kind of what that would look like. I had reached out to them but had not gotten any information on that back as of this morning. And then we would have to find something else to work with our website. Right now our website is through UC More, which is a TLC, I'm trying to think, software. But they've also told us that that software is going to be going away within the next year. So either way, we're going to be having to find a new website. The third option,
Can I ask you on that?
Yeah, of course.
Would you need a new website with the other provider? Everybody's gonna have to have a new
Yeah,
website.
everybody's going to have to find a new
Thank you for
website.
clarification.
Yeah, of course. The third option, I'm going to briefly touch on it. We chose to look into it because it was made by public librarians for public libraries, but we would be the first library in Tennessee to use this option. It's very new. I don't know how it would interact with some of the systems that the state has, and is honestly not that much more cost effective than TLC is. So I put it on there just because I did the work. I wanted to kind of show it to you guys, but I wouldn't recommend it moving forward. What I would like to look into and find out what the next steps would be switching from TLC, which is our current software system, to Atrium, because I feel like it would be a better use of our funds.
So you do think moving to Atrium
Yes.
would be?
I'm not sure why that decision was not made in the previous administration.
How much does that save in the total operating budget year over year?
So this year, our TLC is charging us just over 20 grand. I don't have the exact numbers with me. And then Atrium is wanting to charge to switch over, so this includes all switchover fees, a 2-day in-training process, everything like that, would be just over 10 grand.
And then how much year over year?
And then year over year, they were gonna drop that down to just over 5.
So 5,000, we're talking about recurring here,
Yeah.
5,000.
Recurring
so-
versus 20,000 recurring.
So $15,000 net, you could, with the same amount, you could put that toward, what, half of an FTE?
Yeah.
Could you use that half FTE to open the libraries for an additional
8 hours on Fridays.
8 hours on Friday?
I would have to look into that. I don't feel comfortable saying yes or no because I've not seen it all broken down line by line. But that would definitely be something I could look into and might be a possibility, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Did you say your current one ended July 1st?
It will, so we'll have to repay it on July 1st.
So we're gonna
yes.
plan the 20 plus, so you're gonna pay
Yeah.
them more this year to get.
And I
it.
do want to add that the city of Hendersonville says that they still have the $20,000 extra above the 50 that they currently give if we open that extra 8 hours on
So
Friday.
this would be, to me,
So that'd be
this-
an extra $35,000 a year
we-
for your operating expense.
So, yeah, so that would be a
Recurring.
good looking thing to look at here, like, if you can assume an extra an extra 15 in savings there, maybe, you know, the county could find another 5. Because we, you know, you guys asked for more members, we didn't do that, so, you know, an extra $35,000 to $40,000, and to see if you could, be open for an additional 8 hours.
I would definitely be open to looking into that.
Okay, awesome, we'd love to see that.
There's a couple questions.
I'll get you, and then you go ahead.
Number one,
You
you
might go
know,
first,
it
'cause mine's
is
a week.
July 1st, correct? So you've
Yes.
got a 10,000 conversion, are they gonna, does the 10,000 conversion cover you through the rest of the year? Or are they gonna charge you the 10 and the 5?
So it would cover us through the rest of the year.
Okay, so Matt, what I'm saying is you got the 20, she's gonna have to pay it July 1. And then you're gonna have to pay, so it's gonna cost you 10 more this year, but save you 15 next year.
No, I understand that, but like, again, I'm talking about recurring,
Right.
we could absolutely take care of that in capital,
Right.
this is a small amount.
Capital conversion for
You can't take care of
capital conversion.
Conversion?
It says capital in nature.
It's a building that's partly owned by us. It's software.
The software every year is the
Yeah,
software
but it's a
costs,
conversion.
It doesn't feel like capital.
because probably
Yeah,
half
well,
of
look,
it's
it's a
your
small
annual.
amount, we can figure that out, though. All right, y'all are both giving me the no, then.
Well, what the actual
All right.
official people says is capital like items, so I don't know.
I don't know.
All right, Mr.
Could
Harris.
this be covered with the bequest that was made with that will?
Oh,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could-
Conversion,
yeah,
that
we
way
could
we could
easily
take
do.
it out.
That we could easily do.
Oh, yeah, we could make that happen.
Okay, so look, here's, I'll make a motion here. That, and it's a contingent motion, that, contingent upon, one, it has 2 parts. One, that we go ahead and we move you over to Atrium, and that we keep your funding the same. In that contingent on your ability to, open an extra day, and contingent on the city of Hendersonville meeting that, that we would appropriate an additional $5,000 on top of recurring for you year over year, and how much from the $20,000 from the will, $20,000 from the gift to cover the
to,
change.
the change, so
the
10,
changeover.
yes, $20,000.
So that's my motion, there was a lot in that, I have to say it again.
Change over to
Yes.
10. The changeover.
So it's contingent on.
Changeovers, the changeover is 10.
Change over to
Yeah.
10, man.
So that would come from
And
the gifts.
Yes.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second?
And I have an amendment.
Okay, what
I
amendment?
want to define what a day is, and I want a day to be 8 hours.
You don't have to make the amendment, the original, the motion maker's good with that, is the second good with that?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to point out a couple of things. One, if we're gonna be double dipping here with 2 different softwares, we need to be very cognizant of what the termination requirements are of this contract, because we don't wanna be doing this any longer than we have to. The second item is, Gen Ops just kicked off, starting all over again, the maintenance, getting some sort of maintenance agreement for that facility. So I don't know how this extra time, extra hours is gonna play into what's trying to be accomplished with getting them to become a part of some sort of new agreement for the maintenance of that facility. So just
So here's
FYI.
this, my motion will assume that there's not a material impact from those things. And if there is a material impact, then we can come back. But thank you for the comment. Is the second good with that? Still good with it, given the comments?
Yep.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, if we can find out that, I'll call Mayor Clary, see if they're still amenable to their part there, and if you can come back and state that you're open and these contingencies are met, and we will
Can I have-
meet our deal.
One more question.
Go ahead.
That is library directed, and you have the larger collection.
Yes.
So one of the items that I was looking at and wondering about is an automatic checkout machine. And some counties that have it say it cuts down on their staffing needs. And some research has been done, and they range from 5,000 to 30,000, but understand you don't have magnetic strips in your books anyways.
No, we do not.
So it wouldn't be like we need the super 30,000. Would a automatic checkout machine help us going forward with reoccurring salary costs?
That would be something I'd have to look into a little
Could you
bit
do that?
more. Yeah, to get a
And let us
definite
know,
answer.
because I'd
Yeah.
like to invest in technology.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
agree on that one.
Do we
I'd
have a
definitely
date,
look
do
into
we, Chairman, do we have a date when we might want her
We
to, a
need to-
goal date for her to come back?
We don't know, we're waiting to see if, when we're all gonna be back.
Oh, okay, so
there will
not-
be, we don't have it yet, but there will be a time.
So start working on it.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, of course, thank you.
So we've taken care of libraries,
We have,
oh, do we have another one?
don't we have, do we have to deal
I
with the
had
cap? I
another-
don't know what
Well, there was a couple emails sent to me, and that's what I was asking. Millersville came in and they said that the reduction in their part-time, if there's any way that they could have 2,628 of it back. That's just a request. It could be on their second hearing.
Because when you made me choose between the clerk and the catalog and acquisitions librarian.
We're on
No.
small amounts here,
Okay.
Jim, that I'm fine with that. Like, I don't know that we need a vote on it. Let's just add that back in.
What's the thing? But my other thing is if there's any requests like that, you may want to let it be their hearing, you know, they get a hearing too. So
I don't
maybe clear.
understand.
Okay.
Basically, when they put a full-time employee on Millersville the other day, what the Millersville director is saying is that the existing part-time fulfill a very important role, and if there's not at least $2,628, they won't be able to cover it even with the full-time.
So that's
line.
what they're asking for.
Can I ask, and I don't know if you have this right away, the standards, I think Millersville's a level 2 or 3. How many full-time employees are they supposed to have?
I don't recall. I don't
There
know
is a
that. I
number
don't
though,
have that
right?
on me.
I don't think they have their number
Did
either.
we, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about $2,600 or
2,600 is all we're talking about?
$2,600.
I
So
thought we were talking about a full
without,
employee.
without, if I don't know that
Okay.
we need a motion, can you just add that back in?
Yeah, but if you
That's fine.
You've already handled that.
Okay, so let's keep moving here.
The other one was Mr. Ellis that's outside the
Did you
general
have
fund.
any more library?
Can we go, or do you want to finish the
She's
general
not
first?
finished with library.
Oh,
We just need to make sure that the,
I think several saying they were having difficulties making the cut, the one asking for additional from.
but we're not cutting anymore.
That's
no,
what I'm
we're not
thinking.
cutting
think-
anymore.
Since they was
I
already
think
We just
original.
needed to make sure that Gallatin's capital was added, because none of their capital was added. And she had $50,000 in capital. She had paint for $8,000, the building facade, which is $25,000, which I don't think, can we, would you like to come speak to that? Ms. Cato, she's the director of the Gallatin
Rules are
Library.
suspended.
And she has that $20,000 asked for HVAC. Would that fall under your, your initiative, your roof and air conditioning initiative that we passed?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to do, okay, so,
So we're good.
no, well, would you address the building facade? Well, she's the director. I'm not day-to-day. She is. That's her job.
Several years ago, we had gotten a lot of complaints about the front of the building, and it's a really soft sandstone that's easy to really mess up with a pressure washer. And so we put out a bid and to get it cleaned and sealed, because when the building was built, it wasn't sealed, and they have sealant now. Somebody came in and offered to do it for free, hoping to get more business from the county, and I was forced to use them. And they didn't do a great job. And it needs to be re-cleaned the proper way. There may be some,
How much are we talking?
the last time we did it, we talked to somebody, it was, I'm so sorry.
I have it at 20,000.
Yes.
And the thing is, when we spoke about this in the library board budget meeting, I suggested that we get in touch
Here's
with
the
someone.
thing, without
in Johnson.
objection, because we've just removed $2 million from the courthouse, I think we have $20,000 to take care of this, so.
Yes. Second.
Does she need more than
We
20?
don't
I think
need,
she has a few dollars more than
That's
20.
50 total, man.
yeah, I know,
No.
it's suspended. I don't know that we need a motion on it, is my point.
Yeah.
I'm just like, without objection,
Well,
let's just add
I was just saying,
How
we couldn't
much?
do a motion since the rules were
Yeah.
suspended anyway, so.
How much does she need in total though? That's just the cleaning. She needed some other pieces.
Yes, I had, painting for $8,000 to do the downstairs meeting room.
What's your total amount?
Oh.
Total amount, everything.
Mark it, Dave. It looks like $28,000 if, 28,000. 28 plus 1,500, so.
$30,000, it's
Would
anybody,
30 make you?
so let's,
Well, we also have light fixtures that the maintenance department has recommended that we update, because we have a lot of, deceased animals that are in them. And it's, I'm sorry, we
So-
can't reach
And ours
without
are
okay, so
closed,
here's,
and
I'm
bats and stuff.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying to move this along, it's
Yes,
okay, I'm
yes.
just
I
trying.
have $50,000.
So
is
let's
what she
do-
sent.
50,000?
That's a good chunk, so let's do. It's in capital, that's just, we good with 35, do we wanna take a vote, come back in, or what do we wanna?
Right on.
I'll move us back into.
I'd like to speak to it.
Wait, let's just move us back into our rules here, thank you, ma'am, go ahead, Ms. Ward.
So with the request
We need a
that,
motion out there if we're gonna discuss it.
Is there, Do we need, I don't know.
Or move to discuss.
I'll move for $35,000 of capital toward the,
Second.
motion and a second, Ms. Boyd, go ahead.
So, I believe that most, if not all of her items are maintenance related, because we want to maintain the outside of the building. And then I would like to see, she's got furniture up on the top that is deteriorating without proper maintenance. It's nice teak wood, somebody spent top dollar for it. Her items to fix are maintenance items to maintain our assets, and that's why I'm supporting the full amount.
So,
The 50,000.
well, do you want
Yeah,
to make an
because
amendment
it's
to?
other than the
do you wanna-
paint, it's like
Do you want to make
maintaining
an
the
amendment to
building.
50,000?
Yes,
So there's
I would like to
amendment.
make the amendment, because it's, to me, it's
So
maintenance to
it-
maintain our
So your amendment
property.
is to move to increase the 30,
53,000.
to increase the 35,000 to 53,000?
Yes.
That's your amendment, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, one abstention, and we're back on the main, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're one abstention, okay. So motion carries, we'll move that up to $53,000 of capital if they've requested. Okay, Mr. Wine, are we done now with libraries? I believe we are complete.
Westmoreland's here.
Westmoreland just.
Okay,
The thing, are we doing adjustments now? Because the original request was for downward adjustments, or are you waiting on the second hearing for these?
let's,
So that's my question.
how much, what are we talking about, like?
I don't
And
know.
are-
Ours
I
is
guess
to do
there's,
with the
I guess there's a
downward.
question here. Were these adjustments were the emails coming in a question about the reduction, the additional, we're not doing any of those additional reductions now because
These aren't.
because we've moved the penny over, we don't have to ask for
This,
that.
this also would be her computers.
I thought, didn't
Do
they?
we've taken.
We talked
taken care
about
of
those,
your
I'm not
computers?
sure. Look under, that was discussed, but I don't know if it was.
We just wanna make
approved or
sure.
not.
Where is it under? I got the page here,
Is it
Westmoreland.
$3,311?
That's the tech grant.
That's the
This
tech
is
grant, we had a
down.
question about. That's right, we had a question about the tech grant too. What, is it
That's
the
for
25?
Gallatin.
What's for Westmoreland? What was the request
She
for
had to
computers,
have-
ma'am?
We have taken care of your computers, I think.
Well, it's
We've
my-
got
Hold on,
3,000
I have a motion to take.
They should
to
be
suspend
yellow if
rules.
we've added something, that's what I'm saying,
Second.
are we?
All in favor?
Aye.
There's a $30,020 and it's marked in yellow, we added 2320 to it. Back on, I believe, was it the second?
So what was your total request for computers?
A little over $2,400.
2320 or a little over?
2320, that was the email I had.
I might.
Well, it's 30, I mean, we got, was it 3,020?
But it was 2320 is the additional she asked.
Oh,
for.
okay.
Did you ask for some windows? You never did here before.
Let's-
All I've asked for is.
There's windows.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it the windows?
So-
It was the conversion.
Mayor, are you picking up her windows out of your budget?
Oh, the windows, that was the 15.
That's
That's what
already
they're
been- I
discussing
think that's
right
already
now, the
been- Oh, yeah.
windows.
Yeah,
I think the
we've
mayor's got
taken
them.
care of your
We're
windows.
taking
The
care of
mayor's
it.
got your
Already
windows.
got those and working on it.
Yes.
Okay, so,
That's
so
what
is
she's
this,
asking
so
about.
is this good?
About
ma'am?
computers and you were talking about windows.
Or-
Well, they started talking about windows, and I knew the mayor
Not
had it.
Microsoft 11.
I believe so, yeah.
They've already been ordered.
2,400?
She was just trying to budget for them for next year.
I-
Are you still on Windows 98?
There's an email I received that we read that.
97.
2320, okay.
When you were here, we read the email and it was 23.
Look, let's just, let's go to 2,500.
Why don't we just have her email me, because she
That's
gets a
fine.
second hearing anyway. she
We're
can
talking
just
about a
email
few
me.
$100 here, just email what you need, as long as it's not over $2,500, we'll be fine.
Okay. I believe it's in my.
All
Yeah,
right.
we need to, is Gallatin still here?
Yeah.
All right.
We have a question about your tech grant.
Yes.
We have a tech grant that you requested for $3,311. We need to add the revenue or remove the grant. Has the grant actually been approved
Yes, yeah.
for next year?
We've already spent it, it was for 2025.
The 26, you made a request for a tech grant, 26. 3,500 and, I'm sorry, $3,311.
Yeah, we've spent that, and
For fiscal year 26.
we haven't asked for that yet, for the tech grant, for the
You
next
put it in
year.
your budget for next year.
I was,
Yeah, that's why we had a question about
yes,
it.
no, that does not need to be in there, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
let's mark it yellow and then when she gets her verification, she can.
Any others from the libraries?
That would be all I'm aware of unless Ms. Bergdorf's aware of it.
That's all
Thank
we've
y'all.
taken care
Thank
of.
y'all, ladies.
Thank you all.
Bill, they asked about standards for how many full-time libraries they're supposed to have for their size, and they're supposed to have 2 full-time clerks and 2 part-time.
Who?
Um,
Milledgeville.
They've got more than that.
I mean, they have.
Well, that's the standard, but she,
Okay.
she
Okay.
can't, she
Thank you, we had that
has,
question earlier.
she
Thank
has
you.
Thank you.
full
Thank y'all,
time,
ladies.
is it, they'll stay.
Okay,
I think she's
moving
Yeah,
on
she
does.
here.
Do you want to go to Mr. Toby's, or do we want to finish general? fund
Let's
first?
I'm gonna finish general fund, because what I'd like to do, since we've moved this penny over, is, and I think this is gonna be, I mean, look, if we're gonna do this,
Do it right.
I would like to, whether we need a motion or not, I'll bring us back in the rules. I don't know that we need a motion, but I would like without objection, because we're having to do this with the assumptions to, direct Mr. Long to see if he can build back in, the step raises that the departments had asked for, and just see what the total amount was gonna be. Just to see what the total amount would be with those.
That's gonna take a while. Yeah, they were all over the place.
Can we look at that after the sales tax comes in?
That's, you know what, we can look at it, that's fair, we'll look at that,
I
but,
mean,
When did that
let's-
proposal come in, though, to put back the state?
well, I mean, if we're gonna move the penny over, I mean,
You're
that's
kind of
what it
going
was
back.
about.
We're going
Let's- I like this.
I thought the penny was not to cut anything else.
Well,
Yeah, I thought so too.
let's do this, let's wait until the
That's
tax,
what y'all
let's.
said.
Every time we make money.
Well,
we
hey,
spend
you know, I
money.
mean.
Yeah, not to cut
Motion.
anything else.
You guys open the floodgates, let's do it. So, all right, but I like Ms. Boyd's idea here, let's get to a balanced budget,
And then I'm not stepping forward and saying spend more.
Well-
But
okay. We'll just wait and see what our next estimates look like. All right.
Do you want to, one item that came up at your last meeting, there was a question about the county commissions, what's in dues and memberships. It's probably the most advantageous thing to do, we start on Department 1 and move down, that way we can knock this out. Any questions? And I've got a handout to go to each one of you that shows what was paid, because there was a question about a particular, there's a question about what's paid out of the county commission's dues and memberships.
All right.
I guess.
Doesn't look material.
Well, there was a question, it's the county commission, and I think that there was a question from the commissioners at the table about.
is that your writing? You want that one back?
Hey, did you mind, didn't I? There's two things on this sheet, if you look at it. The first one is actually the payments from the 2025 fiscal year, the one we're in, and the page right behind it is actually the 2024 fiscal year. And I think the question that predominantly came up, and I actually had the invoice attached telling what they are doing. I believe the big question that was posed at the last meeting was about GNRC. And I've actually attached their invoice of what they billed us for.
Any
So-
questions about
I
this?
was the one that brought this up. What do we get from, having been born and raised in Nashville, I don't want to be a part of greater anything having to do with the Nashville, maybe greater Sumner County. But what do they do for us? Are they just trying to pull us into making us a convenient little hot spot for Nashville, or what do they do for us? I had once before asked that this be removed several years ago.
I thought we did.
Is Greater Nashville, is that a government
Well,
agency
wait,
or a quasi?
we've got a question here, we haven't answered it. I thought we did.
Actually, there was never a vote taken.
There was never a vote taken to,
There was a discussion, that's why I'm bringing it
well,
back
what, I
now.
guess, we still have the question of what are we getting out of these?
There's your invoice.
And if Mr. Lambert was here, he'd say, do they have a reserve like the
Yeah,
transportation people?
right, I mean, that we've built
I
up.
won't say that for him.
They're showing on page 2 what they're.
I'll be happy to bring a little clarity to it,
Okay,
and then y'all make the decision. But the Greater Nashville Regional Council is just a name. There are regional councils throughout the state. They're established by law. And what's housed within that is, one, they offer services to counties and cities for planning purposes. They offer senior programs, which we would lose that benefit. But the most important thing is the Regional Transportation Board. which is the flow of all federal dollars for all road projects that happen. And so we have the potential of losing our ability to be able to be added to the transportation infrastructure plans and future road projects.
So if, Mr. Mayor, so if we were to exit from this, we would lose.
We would lose our voice at the table.
But we would lose the ability to, I mean, isn't our voice at the table our state reps?
Not on this, no.
Why? I
I mean, they do have a voice, but they don't set in on these meetings at the transportation plans.
So I'm just trying to understand the flow of this. So like, our state representatives have a, you know,
They allocate money to
allocate
to
funding, and some, you know, sometimes allocate federal funding, which flow through them, or we can apply to federal funds directly from time to time. And we use these for various road projects, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the flow of dollars. Where in that flow of dollars does the GNRC have a vote?
They're the governing body.
Of federal dollars?
That the federal dollars flow through the MPO, which is under the authority of GNRC. And they have those entities there's different development districts all over the state of Tennessee. They're all divided up. This one, for whatever reason, is named Greater Nashville. You know, it could have been called Central Middle Tennessee Development District.
I'm gonna text
So
William Lambert right now, who's on our I don't expect him to get to me immediately, but who is, you know, heavily involved in our
Can I
state
ask my
finances,
question?
and ask, and I just wanna make sure that this question is right.
yeah.
That if we were to withdraw from the GNRC, will there be a material impact to our ability to apply for to receive
I
federal?
said potentially there could be.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
text that, but go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
Back to my earlier question, is this a government agency, a quasi, is this an NGO? What is
It's
it?
quasi-government, yeah.
So is it
it's
a
it's developed.
nonprofit? Is
I think
it
so.
an NGO?
Yeah, I don't know the exact structure.
Because their annual budget's 26 million. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
what I'll do, I guess they have
Could we-
all this
Well,
money.
go ahead, let Ms. Boyd, and then.
You know,
I'm
and I
good.
think it's
I
probably
understand.
best if you have GNRC come in and
That's what
explain
Mr. Long was-
themselves.
That's what I'm saying, because the mayor handles many, many things, so it's hard for
Yeah.
him to know every detail, just like me.
I
So
get
it
that.
may be more advantageous to invite the GNRC representative down to discuss how they're formed and all those details if you need those. To be fair, 'cause it's kind of hard to know all those items. I'm sorry.
I mean, if we want,
So
I'm
it-
happy to do that during our next meeting that we're gonna have to schedule anyway. Mr. Harrison, then Mr. Hyde.
I could shed just a little bit of light because the city of Portland utilizes GNRC, but only as a source of information. They are a lot of statistical gathering, and they bring the statistics to, because I've been on the, I guess what you call a quasi board for what's called Preserving Portland, which is basically just an advisory board to say, okay, what do we want to see over the next 25, 30 years? And all they do is compile and bring in data to us so that those individuals can make decisions and present a plan. They're not advising us or saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. Now, that's just been my experience in Portland. But they've been very helpful, I can say that.
I'll just quickly state, if you go to gnrc.org, they've got a mission statement on there, and you can actually learn quite a bit. I've learned quite a bit just reading it now, but there is more information out there for anybody that chooses to check it out.
Mr. Hyde, you had a comment?
The only thing I would say about this is, if there is an organization here such as GNRC, and no one at this table really knows what they do, I mean, really knows what they do, we're in serious trouble if we're participating and giving money to them. The other thing I'd like to say is that years ago, I don't know exactly what year it was, an organization that we used to fund pretty heavily invited me to lunch one day to talk about plans, some plans that were being initiated, and somehow Greater Nashville was involved in that. This was a rail system that did not benefit Sumner County. It was really a convenience to Nashville to get workers to Nashville and then get them home. And I think that because we didn't really jump at it, I think that's the rail service that ended up in Wilson County that is just about defunct now because of lack of use. But it was going to open the heart of this county up by rail right into Nashville, and this was being talked about at that time. I don't think very many people knew about it. This was discussed at lunch. I'm very suspicious of this group, and personally, as one person, not a member of this committee, I wouldn't have anything to do with it or regional transportation. I don't think it benefits Sumner County. I think it's something that benefits Nashville and using us.
So I agree with both commissioners down here, but I am wondering if Portland's membership is under ours.
It may very well be. I'm looking at the
And I don't
membership right
wanna-
now on their website, thanks to Mr. Sumner. Members, by membership is Gallatin, Goodlettsville, Hendersonville, Millersville, Mitchellville, Portland, Westmoreland, and White House. So it's very possible that that's under the county.
So we're covering all their dues.
I think so. I kind of.
Regional council officers,
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, without objection, let's just invite them to, you know.
Maybe they can pay their.
Because the
dues.
last time that we invited, you know, somebody, it was the regional transportation, and we learned that we had 12 years of reserves, and we just decided, you know, just because we invite somebody doesn't mean that they get more money. I would be interested in hearing from them, so without objection, I'm happy to, I'd be interested in seeing what they had to say at our next meeting. Okay, so we'll do that.
And can you ask them to be prepared to tell us what type of entity they are? Because that'd just be interesting.
Yeah,
I
we
wanna
can.
know.
Well, if they're coming, you can ask
Yeah.
them.
Well, I want to be, the gentleman the last time said, I just found out last night and I don't have.
We'll get,
answers.
they're gonna have plenty of time now.
He did. Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
We're down to county commission, a couple of items that we had noted, do you want to go down department by department, or do you want to, and then look for things added, or do you want to go to things that we've noted?
Let's just look for what was added per Miss Boyce. I mean, I think that's the fastest way to do this.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, so we
Okay,
can
that's
share
fine,
employees.
that's fine.
Question one is,
That's
there's
fine.
a EMS, we had a question for them when we actually have Jay back here. There was a training supplement this year, and we had a question, is do we need to put it in the budget for next year, or is it one time?
It should be reoccurring after this year.
And it's pretty much flow through, so I'm just requesting from the committee, because it won't really have an impact on your numbers today, that you just let us work with EMS and add in that for next year to prevent an unnecessary budget adjustment. It's a flow through,
That's
it's
fine.
a training
I mean, does
supplement.
anybody have any? Leave it.
And I think the other question, we had a question on the sheriff's training supplement, I think he's here.
Motion suspend to
Second.
all in favor.
Aye.
Training
I think
supplement.
the only thing, we had a question about the training supplement, if Bethany can go over there and kind of pose the question that was seen. I don't know if we need to adjust it in the budget, but it would be the same thing, it would be a flow through, it would be unnecessary adjustments. Eric? What do we need to get with you, Eric?
This one, when we talked, you said we had two this fiscal year. Next year we want.
As of right now, the plan that has been conveyed to me is one next fiscal year now.
Is that 2009, is that one or two there, Eric?
I think the 209,000 is for the two that we did this year.
So do we need to temporarily take it down to one, or do you want to leave it to, we don't know if we're getting there or not?
I'll be honest with you, I think it makes it more efficient if you leave it to, it's flow-through funding, it's not like we can spend that money on anything
It'll
other
make your
than.
variances larger, but it won't affect your bottom line.
That's fine, let's just leave it.
That's why we're asking, once you say all these huge
Yeah,
variances,
but that's,
but, okay.
I mean, that's fine.
Then
I don't
you-
have, does anybody else have a problem leaving it?
Where does it flow from?
The state.
State, so it has no
It just
effect.
flows
on-
It just,
for
Mr.
certification.
Lyons, it's because it's too, it makes the sheriff's department's spend variance look bigger.
I got it.
That's, we just,
That, and then the other thing is when you guys start looking at our financials, you'll have bigger
so when we. so
revenue and expenditure
there's-
variances and.
We'll look at, these things all stack up, and so you look at the sheriff's department, you look, oh my goodness, you look, spend looks more, well, this is one area, like, that's really, should be half that.
Plus it creates variances if you don't get it, so that's another.
Yeah.
Is it more
But-
painful to adjust it during the year because it, or is it okay just to have the
I
variances?
think we just leave it, I mean, there's gonna be variances and grants that come in.
Yeah, we know that.
Thank you.
The next question is, there's the radio system for Mr. Widener, and it's in several departments, and I think the amounts are slightly off. I think the first one's a question in Ken's department for the flow through. Do we have the amounts, we just need to add them?
No, they're in the numbers. Like you
So I
said,
thought,
25, 110,
I thought that, man, now I'm confused myself. I thought at one point we had centralized all these with Mr. Widener, and, well, no, we had distributed them, and then I thought there was discussion to centralize it.
This is what you did. If they are an entity outside the county, or, I'm sorry, an entity within the county, then they pay their portion like the sheriff's department, ECC, or whomever. But we have entities outside the county, so we have to receive the funds, and the department has to pay them, and it's always been under Mr. Widener's. But it's not in there right now. If you look, last year, he had 59,662, and I think he said that one was, I'm sorry, 59,969, but it was 59,662 for the coming year. Unless we're gonna do something different we have in the past, we need to add those in, because that's a flow through for like, who all flows through, like the city.
153,417 is the outside agencies. And it's in the document we got from there, I thought. That's what we've been working off of in the past couple of days.
So we just need to add it in the revenue. And to tell you what they said, it's not actually an expense for Mr. Widener's office. That's for things such as the city police where they reimburse us, the fire departments, various agencies, but it does need to be added back in.
The other one too, Ken, like what you.
That's it, right, the yellow
What
one.
you had,
The yellow right there. That's it.
that's
That's what I bill.
communication.
That's what we pay, and I bill
We just added that.
Hendersonville, Galveston,
And you
Portland,
spread- you
White House,
separate all
and
that
they
out.
submit checks.
Right, that's just what we added.
So where do we need to, where do we?
That's
where-
not
We
what
just
I-
now added it in.
That's not
Oh,
what I
okay.
added in now, that's what y'all
Yeah.
added in last
I
week.
thought we took care
Is
of
that,
it.
Where do we
But,
add that?
is that a
okay,
recurring?
I
Or
had
is
it
that an
split
annual?
out, it's in two lines, it's
Okay.
in software and
Maintenance
communications.
out,
Did y'all,
outside
y'all
agency.
didn't split it last week, did y'all change it?
That's a recurring
No.
expense.
Is that an annual cost?
I don't know if they just did it while they were.
It fluctuates, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention.
But it's not an expense to us,
I don't
it's
know
an
that-
expense to them, but it's
To the cities?
to
So
the
wait.
city.
Bill comes to us.
So at the
Ken
end of the
bills
day,
them,
It's
they
the
pay
manager,
us
we just need
back.
permission to adjust it. to
We're the
the-
central, we're the
that's
central
fine.
agency.
I don't know that we
Incorporated
need to
pay
do
something.
anything else here, like,
I
if you can just
understand.
adjust, and if there is, if it's sitting in two lines and we
Okay.
moved it down into one, but there's extra sitting in communications that you can reduce, then.
If the committee's okay, we'll adjust Ken to the
That's
amount he
fine.
provided and then send it back to him.
That's
It's
fine.
immaterial differences on the overall.
That's fine.
Because the things we were even talking about.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
It's still a wash at the end.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Oh, everybody external is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Widener? I think we're good here. All right, I'll bring us back into our rules, go ahead. Mr.
Right now, the things we have is the things that Ms. Boyd was asking about, and I'm not sure which one she's referring to, but I do know under other benefits that I did put $100,000 in there, and that was based on the discussion at, I think, self-insurance and a request, because the small departments, they're generally asked to find the money within the departments where the county commission covers it, but that was $100,000 new in the budget if we're gonna cover it by transfers versus out of unassigned fund balance.
All right, say that last part again.
Now go click on that, Beth, on those other benefits.
Is that back to when they have an employee that changes from
Yes,
single to
ma'am.
family? Thank you.
That was a request because, just like the libraries, we asked them to find if they can, and then the county commission covers it, because what you don't want to happen is departments discriminated against individuals because they got families or spouses. So the county commission always asks them to find it first. If they can't, we've always covered it, and we've done that for several years, and your fund balance is breaking even. So I put that based on the discussion and the request, but it is a new request, and you could keep doing it the same way we've always done it in the past. Some of the departments have complained about being done that way, but it's always slurred.
What departments were complaining?
Some of them, they say it's hard to find the transfers.
They have been to financial management, the one specific one, because, and basically they were over, and they went and found it in their copying budget, and that's when I started looking at it and talking to the department heads. And it did seem to be, like, we wouldn't want to restrict their operating, day-to-day operating just because they changed out an employee. They have no control over.
Yeah.
And they obviously can't ask when they go to interview
Yeah,
someone
all
what
right,
kind of
I get
insurance
that.
claim.
Let me give you the details of why it happens, because just like I talked about the health insurance earlier, we do it based on actuarially determined premium. So there's a cost that's expected to be for single, employee plus one, and family at 80%. So for instance, if somebody's working here and they're single, they get married, it goes up. If they get divorced, it could potentially go down when the divorce happens. If they have children, it'll go up. So what happens is we ask the department, and that's been the long standing, see if you can find the money if you can. If you cannot find it, then we send it on the budget. The county commissioners never refused to do it. Looking at the deltas, you're in pretty good shape on your delta, so this is something you could keep following the same procedure, but as what Terry's saying, some of the departments may try a little too hard to find the money, and then they don't have money to operate. I guess that's where you're coming from.
Maybe if we could just send them out a thing that says, we're willing to take care of this, just let us know.
Well, yeah,
Instead of
well,
asking them
We
to put
already
their.
do that.
Yeah.
So, and they could.
But maybe, so we're putting that amount
So,
in there
yeah.
just to.
100,000.
So I think it's good.
Then let's just leave, I think we
Yeah.
just leave it. I think
Yeah.
we're fine.
Leave the 100 in there?
Yeah,
That's one of the new increases that she was discussing. I'm not sure what other particular increases.
well, it's just that we have like throughout, not 400,000 that Matt's looking for, but throughout,
we-
we have new
We
departments
don't
that are
need that
asking.
now.
Well, just because we don't, we have departments that are starting to pick up, food supplies that never had them before. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but we're picking up, we're growing in areas, a little bit here and there, and, I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying, I'm just pointing out that we have new line items.
Part
Some
of
of that
it may
is
be that they
transfer.
haven't been coding it correctly in the past, and we're now catching up.
And part of it's transfers. Also, remember there was these massive amount of transfers that we've been telling them to correct their original.
Yes, I know
That'll
about
be
that.
what- But I can tell you what food supplies generally, or most of it is. A lot of it is the water bottles in the offices, because this particular building, and definitely not the old courthouse, you probably don't want to be drinking fountain water if you don't have to. Let's be articulate. So that's to buy the bottled water in the office is what the majority of that costs.
Is it cheaper to get the big water things like you have in your office?
That's what those are for, yeah, that's what that's.
But some of the offices are still carrying the water bottles.
They do committee meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
not generally.
Yeah, we get them for that very reason as meetings.
So let's leave this as is.
That's some of your food supplies too.
What's the next on your list, Ms. Board?
I was just pointing out that we have new things and I don't understand.
Yeah,
That's-
Is there anything
there's-
material that we need to change, or we?
Not with materiality
Yeah,
being
that
so
doesn't
large, no,
change.
I guess. I mean, 400,000, I don't see anybody
Well-
buying water for that.
Well, no, but I mean, if you're, that's comprised of 10,000 here and 20,000 there.
It's good water, it's.
All right,
Do you want to talk about Mr. Ellis's budget next?
There-
yeah,
but
let's,
there-
go ahead, Ms.
Go
Boyd.
ahead, no.
No, you,
No, it's, I mean, there are items in here, I just don't remember, but I'll.
okay.
Might I suggest the possibility we go through Mr. Ellis's, but that time it'll be lunch.
All right.
Take your lunch break, it'll give Terry time during lunch to
All right.
find
Let's
the
do-
items
let's-
she's concerned
If
about.
y'all don't wanna look at items,
We'll look at them after lunch, after you have time.
I want to
find
look
them.
at them.
Yeah, if we, I mean, but
Say at lunch, you
let's
guys
take
can
care of
find
let's take care of Mr. Ellis, because that's a big chunk, and then we can break for lunch, come back and do details.
What about ECC?
yeah, they've been here all
They,
day.
you
There's,
got rid of
there's
their-
no
all
change.
about me.
The one penny got rid of all the cuts, that was my. that was
Well,
my
he's wondering
comment.
about the cuts we made the other day, I think.
Well, those are still in there, I mean, the
We'll
cuts that
see
we
at
made
the hearing.
previously are still in, but the additional requested cuts are not now, so. But there will be we're gonna have to submit a hearing, what we're gonna have to do is submit a complete budget with all the updated, numbers, and then there will be a hearing
will be an opportunity for us
Yes.
to
Yes.
request what you had cut
Yes,
last week.
there will be another opportunity.
So basically, after we reconsolidate the budget and notify the departments, there'll be at least 10 business days to give you time to respond back with a second request. Then we'll come back for a hearing.
This,
As always.
today's was about finalizing, finalizing one. And these are not the final hearings. Sorry if that was misunderstood.
No, I was just gonna kill two birds with one stone, and so, yeah, it's sacrifice some time later.
Yeah,
It's okay.
all right,
Good.
roger that. Okay.
If we can go on over to highway, Ms. Brown. Show them first where we're at. If you look, Toby's current estimate is 1,557.
Can I just get on the page? Y'all spin that too
Yeah,
fast
w-
for me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, where's the page?
Let me go and get you the page number. I'll wait since I'm fine. Highway is on page number 106. Where we're looking right now. And then you gotta remember that these are reprints, so they should be, if we have a touched highway, they should be the same.
Same as the old.
So right now, if we look with their best estimates, and I'm gonna talk to Toby about the current revenues a little more, maybe him talk the other day. You go on down, Miss Browning, this 1,557,562 is right there's 14% of Mr. Ellis's appropriations for the year. If you keep going on down, the estimated for any operation fund would be 2/12 is 1.84. So just to let you know, he's about $291,000 currently, $210 below the minimum desired by the state, probably the best number to have. The minimum, anything below 1/12, they'll actually start giving us letters, and that's 924, so he's actually 633 above that. So he's not really to the desired, but he's not to the, I guess for the best word, critical at this point.
Is that fund balance? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's his estimated fund
Fund
balance.
balance. Okay, I'm sorry.
But we do need to look at it because he has a lot of state aid funds that may or may not show up in there.
Do you have fund balance up there? Is that the total?
That's-
I didn't know.
Right there, so that's year, so I just want to go back, so we're down a bit from year over year.
Go back. Yeah, that's a conservative, well, we
I mean,
showed that,
we're-
but if you look last year, we're better than last year's.
We're better than last year, but we're down from prior years. How's it look in the past? Can we look at 21, 22?
You mean actually?
Yeah, just the fund balance. I mean, we've spoken a lot about the general fund balance.
They're still
Yeah.
back to 2011.
So this one, I think we need to actually,
Can you hide C and D?
I just want to look at it.
well, I think we need to move some pennies into it, because if we don't,
There's always spend more or cut back on expenses.
well,
I know.
but here's the thing.
All
if
my
we-
constituents, for the most part, say, take care of the roads.
If we don't,
I know.
this is one of those things that they're fine while they've got the capital lead on.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't start to burn in a little bit, he's gonna complete all that, and you're gonna have a big gap.
And I'll tell you, I got one citizen that talks to me all the time. They may live at my house, and they said, you better put money in asphalt any day you get a chance to. So
Well, they've got asphalt, it's not, again, this is not about tomorrow, this is about 3 years from now.
Smoothing.
Right, exactly.
So if you look at
That's
history.
what I'm asking to go back.
Let's go back to history.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you look back in 11, 3.3, so it does vary, 2.1, 2.1. We got down, keep going, to actually the lowest, about $1 million right there, which was 2020. It's actually been up for a while. So the thing we've got right now is, Toby usually has a fair amount of unspent fund balance, so it's going to make this number potentially better.
How did our fund balance go down when we infused it with so many millions?
When did it go down?
25. Oh, it's not down, I'm sorry. Well, our budget number was off, right?
Well, if you look at the expenditure numbers, they're quite a bit different.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry, I was
right,
looking
the
at
millions
that.
are, that's exactly right.
So those are already.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong one.
So we're,
But the reason I bring this up, not as much about his fund balance, is actually looking on projections at this point better than last year, is Mr. Ellis had some requests the other day, and one of them, I'll go through first, is a litter grant, which is a complete flow through. If you go to that, Beth, it's 80.
So had come here today prepared to try to find a quarter of a penny to move into there, but given that we've just done this whole penny change and there's some assumptions, I kind of want to leave this alone now and just see. I just want to see, to Ms. Boyd, your point earlier, we have a balanced budget now across the general fund. This budget is balanced as well.
Yes.
We know you have some work you need. We got a lot of moving pieces, and we know you have some work that you need to do on two fronts. One, you need to move that penny over.
We already, preliminarily,
And two, you need to make you need to revise some estimates based on one, updated sales tax that's gonna come in on the 15th. Those numbers are gonna come in. And two, make some adjustments to, depending on that, what our overall revenue projections is. And what our overall revenue projections are based on what we think the trajectory of the overall economy is going to be. That could be a $500,000 of difference.
plus we need to look at your long-term planning sheets and see how the highway breaks out on that.
So what I would like to do before making any, this is my opinion, I want to leave this alone because
I just have a question about this page before we jump, but go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I understand what the litter collection is and that we take the inmates out and we have a guard. What kind of instructional supplies do those inmates need, or what is the 26,000? And I just can't in my mind figure out what kind of instructional supplies are on that litter. Is that tools?
Some of that, though.
Education and
Yeah,
vests.
schools and.
Did you ever see the
Okay,
things that says
that's what
keep
oh,
the
good.
roads clean and all that stuff?
I didn't know. I mean,
They have to use so much of it to do advertising and education
oh,
and
good.
it's not all cleanup.
Does anybody want to make any changes to highway now?
The only thing I'm saying is one thing really quick, two things. If you look, his litter grant actually is bringing in $87,800. If the committee's okay versus going and working through those tiny amounts, if you're okay for me to adjust, because part of it was to do with salaries and various supplies, with its flow through, or you guys fine with us just adjusting to $87,800?
Anybody got an issue with that, letting him adjust?
I just want to make sure he has enough gas. I mean, it's not much money, but are we doing less litter pickup?
That would be a question for,
I don't care. I mean, he's cutting his own budget, but I just wonder if we're doing less.
well, he just moved the amounts around in the litter grant. The litter grant actually went up from 85 to 87, 8. So I'm saying I want to adjust those lines around and pick up the additional $2,some hundred for the grant if everybody's fine with it.
Yeah.
And you'll get another chance to look at the budget draft at that
You might
point.
want a motion, right?
Okay, I'll make a motion to allow the finance department to make individual adjustments sufficient to pick up $2,700 within his litter.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And then two more items he brought up, and he just sent me an email about it, but this may be for his second hearing. And he mentioned the other day, just make sure they weren't being overlooked. He asked for the part-time to be moved to full, and then he asked for a full-time.
I say we wait on that until because those are going to be, and again, I'm saying this, I am in favor of moving some funds over, but to Ms. Boyd's point, and to the fact that we've done a lot of shifting today, I just think let's just wait, because I'm hopeful, because I too bet on Sumner County, that that little red that we saw in the sales tax drops is not going to be repeated, that we'll revise revenues up a little bit, and that we'll have, additional couple $100,000 that we can play with, while leaving everything else the same. I'm hopeful for that, but, we don't know today, so, I think we can break for lunch.
I don't think it's here yet,
Is it not?
I think they were picking it up.
But you might want to break and go ahead and sit in there and let everybody go through those large items.
Yeah, because the only thing we have left is long-term planning, right?
Right, and we're gonna wait to see where you get on sales
Yeah,
tax
so-
today for it.
So we're almost done.
We're gonna work up your long
Do
term.
we have anything else we need to get?
Not today. Other than look at these large
So we
items.
can just take, if we want to just motion to adjourn, well, no, good, because we want to take these items from this board.
So I think the
All
best
right.
thing is to go ahead and go on an early meal
All right.
break, that way Terry can start looking at her stuff.
I'll
and-
break us, and then we'll come back as soon as we know lunch. Thanks, guys.
You want to go get somebody, get you some, postal little things?
The lawyer's thing gone? Or we should call upstairs and get it?
No, he said we need to call.
So let's, are we doing capital or are we doing election?
Capital election, and I think David had a question about the penny. And I can go through that really quickly if you want me to.
If we can do that, we'll do the pennies first. If you can do just a 5-minute overview, and then we'll move to, let's do capital after that.
Okay.
Where we
Or actually,
start?
let's do election after that.
Okay.
Penny,
And then there
election,
was
and
the,
capital.
But before we get started, I want to clear one thing up. With the Gallatin HVAC, it is not actually on that list. It
That-
should have been on that list.
library?
Yeah, the
Gallatin.
Gallatin Library. It should have been on that list, but I went back to check the list, and all the libraries are on there except for them.
I make a motion to add the
I
HVAC.
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
How much money are we estimating? Did you probably get those?
She had $25,000, no,
Really?
$20,000 in her long-term planning / capital this month for this coming up fiscal year. But she said she wasn't sure that it would need to be replaced. So if you
Okay.
have them in the assessment
Well-
line, then,
I'll get with Comfort Group
Okay.
and see where they are with the assessment of those units there, because we won't replace them till they go out.
So here's
Yeah,
how I'll do it.
that's
You don't know how
You
many
have a fund
tons
for
it
that,
is, do
right?
I have no idea.
Okay.
You have a fund for that, right?
Yep,
So
yeah,
you
so
need-
all that'll fall in
It,
there.
All right,
it's in
then was
you,
there
not
enough?
her.
There's enough in the fund, you
It's
think?
in the
There it
county.
is.
All right, then let's rock and roll.
Yeah, just leave it,
Thank
yeah,
you.
leave the fund like
Can you
this.
do a few pennies? Thank you, sir.
Okay, David, you have your
Go
sheet for
through
yesterday, or do I need to
discussion.
give you a new one?
Wait, that's from
That's from yesterday that I
last
handed out to
week?
everybody, yeah, last week.
yesterday, last week.
I think I left it at
You
home.
know, this would be better with more board members here because they might have questions too. I mean,
Well,
we-
we've only got an hour.
Yeah, I don't,
You
I know
want
he's got hard, do you have one, David, or
I
not?
will have Miss Browning as soon as she comes back in.
Would this be potentially
Can
one
you go ahead and talk about it?
that you could get offline with them?
I can.
Well, why don't we go through capital?
Yeah, no, here's what we're gonna do. We're
CTAS
gonna
has an online.
do, we're gonna
feed.
do capital, and then Mr. Klein
Is this
can
the
get
one
with
we
you.
Well, I'll get with him and then he's gonna go copy them for everybody again one more time. Yeah, that's what I did earlier, if you could
Election?
make, about
Actually, yeah,
20
election.
copies.
Let's do election before capital. It's a little
Okay.
more complex.
Okay,
Let's
I've got the
start,
one.
and I know this is repetitive, so, let's go ahead and start getting everything in here and passing it out.
We got it earlier.
That's right.
Hmm?
Yeah, you got copies earlier, and I'll pass out new copies. And there's 2 sheets of paper here to start with, we're gonna start with. The one you'll recognize, it's the benchmarking that the other day that we all talked about.
We spoke that you would invite, elections today. Did you invite them? Does that take long?
Did they come?
No.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
You
They
said
were
you-
invited.
Did we get that one?
I did not
already?
make the
I didn't call Miss Ashley.
Why don't we go through this and then we'll call her and see if she can answer some of the
We may
questions.
have that.
After we.
Go ahead.
Oh, I do.
I'm very
I
up to
do.
speed on this. You can go ahead.
Here you
We going through the benchmarking?
Yeah, I'll call.
I'm good.
Mayor.
And everybody's got stuff from last
You
night.
need one.
Do you need?
Then I'm gonna go ahead and pass out another couple of handouts, because they all ride one after the
Okay,
other.
I'm putting them face down.
This was a good point. And I try not to pass everything out before we need it, because what it does is
Down.
people.
Oh, I remember
have
this.
to make paper.
Take one, pass one.
If you've been here last night, we did
Same
2 hours of
thing.
it last
These
night.
aren't stapled, Beth.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I missed it.
I told it
Oh,
to stay.
how are you?
Can you go ahead and pass them
I
out?
had other obligations.
Wait, are these the same thing?
Well, I thought we were gonna do just all election.
Get their own.
You might wanna watch it. We
Same
did
thing.
81
Same
most
thing.
of
Yes,
We got
same
that.
thing.
We
Okay.
got this.
Okay.
These aren't 2 pages, but they're offset. Just make sure you get both pages.
And this one right here, does everybody have this one right here first? It's the benchmarking that we discussed, it's been discussed a couple of times.
Right.
And I wanna sit down and talk because there's nothing on the screen at this point, so.
I'm giving them
Did they know this? Did they know this? Really?
So, David, you ready, and Miss, Burgoyne?
I'm
Yes,
ready.
I am.
Okay. So what we got, this is the benchmarking from the other day, and we compared the 4 counties. We did not include Williamson County, if you remember from our discussion, because their benefits is paid from another line item, so it would not be comparable. So what we did is we took the first one on cost per capita, is actually the total cost for theirs divided by the estimated population for the counties. And the first one came in, and we have them listed here on the front. Wilson, the cost, Sumner, Rutherford, and Montgomery.
Mhm.
Then we came in with cost per registered voters, which is the actual total cost of their department divided by the total, or the average registered voters, which if there's 2 elections that year, we added the 2 together and divided by 2, so it's the average of the 2 elections. And then the other one was the cost per vote cast, and we took the total budget and just divided it by the total number of votes cast that year that was on the state's website. And we kind of came up with the highest to lowest ranking, and we looked at them, but do remember, we're only looking at large numbers, as Mitch actually says, and I think she's going to try to come and explain, there is some potential significant differences between the counties. The other one is I came by and I actually provided you on the next page over. And I know this, I'm going through this quickly because it's very, we went over it the other day, but it's background information.
Right.
That gives you the statistical data for the November and the August elections for the 4 counties. Gives you the total registered voters, the cast votes, the turnouts, and it gives you some very valuable statistical data. The next table right below that, David, is actually the original budgets on the on all the election commissions.
So I just spoke with Annette, and they're on a call right now, a lengthy call with the state regarding changes to election law, so they're not gonna be able to be here.
Okay, I'll just go through it.
Yeah, and I told them that they're gonna get another hearing anyway, so let's just go ahead.
Terry?
So when you go through here, you look at the original budgets, and a couple of things to point out. If you look at on page 2, in 2022, the Sumner County was the most expensive, but it's no longer the most expensive. It's kind of following, other than Wilson County, very similar cost, budget patterns to the other counties. If you look at those, David.
So we were the most expensive for a 2-year period?
For about a year period.
Maybe a year, 2.5 year period.
It's about a year period. We're the most expensive, yeah. On the budgets you were. So we went ahead and we did that, and we compared it, and we showed you, just right below that's the table of the actual budgets, the original budgets that were in there.
Mm-hmm.
That way, if you want to see the information, these are just points, it gives you a little more detail. And then we went into the other question that always comes up for everybody when they try to compare a benchmark is how many full-time employees. If you look, Sumner is number 2, Rutherford number 1, Montgomery number 3, and Wilson has the least. Fall is pretty close to, Wilson has the lowest population, Rutherford's the most, and then Montgomery, so that's the Montgomery's flipped around on that. But I don't know the true reasoning. And to try to give you a fair comparison, because we're only looking at budgets, we actually went ahead and looked at actuals. And we did that through 2024. If you look, everybody follows a very similar pattern on the sheet except for Wilson County. We don't know how they keep theirs smooth, and it's just non-comparable. But we do notice that the actual most expensive election commission in 22 was Sumner County, but for 23 and 24 it was not, but it does follow the same patterns. And I know you guys have seen this before, so I'm going through it very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the next is your estimated populations, and the reason this is important, if you show out of the groups that we actually tested, Sumner County is the slowest growth county, and the other than Wilson, the smallest county in the selected group, just to make sure you get a fair comparison. Now here's where we come into last night's discussion from the audit committee, because everybody knew it was going into the audit committee. And you have a couple of report sheets, and Matt was there last night. You have this sheet. So it's Terry. Does everybody have this sheet?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do at some point, yes. Mm-hmm.
Maybe some copies here somewhere.
Is this one?
Okay.
You got it.
Got it.
I should have an actual expenditure report.
You know,
It's right here. Okay.
I
So
don't
here's your
think
report
that
items,
one is
okay?
working.
These-
It's on, but it doesn't work. It's pointed at the thing. It's
Usually-
running.
Can it hear
But
us?
it's not-
If
I
it
don't
can-
know.
If it can hear us, then we're fine.
I can just see the screen and it's the,
This is on too as a backup, so.
I just want to say, I don't know what's up. The lights are not on it, are they?
It does, I don't see lights, that's why I asked.
Let's just,
If
let's
it's my
continue.
responsibility, I'll let y'all know, that's all.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. So we come back here, this was the discussion last night from the audit committee. If you look at, this is the actual expenditure report year-to-date for the election commission. Okay? Most of your overage is in one place, it is in the election workers. 52,721.13. All your overage is not in that line item, but the majority is. It's this one right here, David.
Yeah, it's this one here.
If you look about 1/4 of the way down the front page on the right, that is your budget variance. If You see that number says 118.8%? And then you see the 52,721.13. That is the actual budget variance for that department. So when we started looking at a couple of things, there was a discussion that budget committee had decreased the line item, but if you pull up this sheet that looks like this. And you go down about a quarter of the way, you're gonna see the line item that's called election worker. If you look at that, it's got last year's budget going from left to right to 126,345. Your requested is 277,219. The amount approved by the budget committee was 280,000, which is actually more than what was requested. So to come back and look at those closely, I went back and did this analysis on the actual election workers. This sheet looks like this.
Yeah.
Okay. If you look at the top, there's like this nice little box, and if you start from the left to the right, the very first grouping is fiscal year 2025, okay? You know, it's got the name of the county, and then it'll have your election dates, okay? It'll say election date November 5th, 2024, August 1, 2024. And then there's your total of 137,699. That is the total number of registered voters for each one of those elections listed there in fiscal year 25. So to get the most fairest number, what I did was took the average number of registered voters. Some of those are overlapped, they're different, but that's your average number, the 137,699, that is the average number of registered voters. The next is votes cast. The 98 and the 19, which makes 118,210. We added those together because those are individual votes cast. And then the next number is your number of voting precincts, followed by the next number over the 332,731.13. That's the total amount of election expenditures that year. Okay, when you go in here and look, it has percentage change and it gives you the information. If you look at the first one, the number of registered voters are up 14.81%. The total number of votes cast is down by a little bit less than 1%. Your total number of precincts from 29 to 28 below it, if you look right below it, is a 3.55, almost 4%, 3.57% increase. And then if you take your 332,000 expenditure and compare it to the 252 right below it, that's a 32% increase. So that kind of gives you the numbers, and the same thing for the 21 and 17, because the presidential election's every 4 years. So that kind of shows you how the cost and your number of votes increased. And we followed it to give you as a committee all the details. These are actually out of our financials. It shows for each year the original budget, the amount spent, the amount adjusted for the election of the election committee. There's a little square box on the side. The only thing we're signifying is the 24 number you're seeing. It actually includes a special election for Millersville. It's not listed up here. The actual state site did not have the statistics for the special election, but we did pay $20,000 for election workers, and the city of Millersville did reimburse us.
That's the 20,120?
Yes, sir. 20,120 on the right in the box. Yeah. That's just to signify that. The other question that came up last night, and I requested from the election committee, is the amount they're paying to poll workers. Looking there on the state website from the Tennessee Treasury or Secretary of the Treasury, it says that that's determined by your local election commission. And then following that, I actually provided you all the data for every election, not necessarily the one that lines up with the year-end discussion, which is 25. The thing you can see is that if you go back to page 1, that in summary, overall cost of the election workers this year went up 32%, a 4% increase roundabout on the number of precincts, a small decrease in your number of votes cast, and about 15% increase in your total registered voters. The one thing this does not cover, if there was other things, because Ms. Ashley sent an email saying that the election machines were around 50 pounds, so it took more people to carry the election machines. It does not account, I don't know if they had too many people in lines last time, or there's some kind of distribution issue, because if you look at the numbers really close, if you look at the votes cast, the 98,508, that's actually up, and that's in your presidential. The one that was low is actually the primary.
So I'm just going to interject real quick to summarize, because we went through, you could spend a lot of time on this, and we did last night. At the end of the day, a few things are true. David hit on a couple of them. One, although her increase that you look at that 32% seems high, the behavior patterns of her department seem to be more or less in line with all the other kind of up and down behavior patterns of the other counties, with the exception of Wilson. I don't know what Wilson's doing, but they're doing something right. And Terry's got some other notes on this too that she's brought to light. So that's one. So the other thing is, at one point, our election commission was truly kind of outside of what you would think is a reasonable deviation from the mean of other comparable counties, but that's no longer the case. Our election commission spend is still on the high side against comparable counties, but it's no longer, way out. So it's been constricted a little bit. So those are kind of the general findings here. So she's within bounds. The election commission's within bounds, but it's Miss Ashley's team is not wildly out of bounds. I want to make note of a few things before we go down too many rabbit holes here. We took some actions last night in the audit committee. One is to have the budget committee as a part of normal budget operations. Hold on, there were two things. One was budget operations.
The other was they're separate from this.
Yeah, that's right. So that's right. So we are going to. Now I'm forgetting. Why am I drawing one?
You're going to ask Miss Ashley to the budget
That's
committee
right.
meeting to discuss
That's,
the other issues.
I just did that, and she can't come. So at the end, sorry, it's right after lunch. So they're not able to make it today. I think what I want to avoid right now, because we don't have a ton of time, is going down like too many kind of operational rabbit holes, because we tried to do that last night and we got to a point where we're like, we don't know, and we kind of need their input. So I think what we would be best served to do today is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is to go ahead and set an amount that we think is reasonable for that department to operate with this year, and decide if we want to fund the convenience voting centers. Make those initial determinations now, and then schedule them to come in for a meeting. I think those are really the decisions we have before us, as opposed to going down, really detailed operational stuff. So anyway, I'll open it. Well, I've got some comments on this, but I just spoke a lot. I'll open the floor for any other comments on the election commission.
You do, and anything that you do here, they will get a second or a time to appeal.
Right.
So the thing is, if Ms. Ashley disagrees, she can come back at the next budget hearing and appeal whatever action you guys need tonight. And she should be able to hear that one explained to you in more detail of the managerial issues that may be involved in this.
Ms. Boyd?
So, I'm reading a lot of stuff that's coming from the federal level. A lot of, and I've spoken that, I've been reading these things, and that the federal level is going to push down. They cannot dictate what the state and the county does, but they can definitely define what the federal elections does. And there's changes coming. I'm not in favor of voting centers because it looks like that they're suggesting that we go back to smaller precincts, and that they're going to demand that on the federal side. Now, it hasn't happened, but my understanding is it's coming in the next 2 months.
So your
Wow.
argument is that if we make this change, it's gonna be a moot point anyway.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't want to invest in voting centers if it's going, I'd like to see what this administration does through the next cycle before we go there.
Okay, I mean,
We're putting infrastructure into buildings we don't even own. We don't know what the climate
Yeah,
looks
that's
like,
fair.
and it's, I'm reading, it's coming.
that's fair.
And I'm reading it very
But
strongly.
if we stay
Mr.
with.
Klein, I'm sorry, Mr. Klein, and Mr. Perkworth.
I understand that they've got maybe $150,000 in capital improvements to the TRC building.
That may go, or we can go back. to the budget.
Yeah, I think we.
There were several adjustments that the commission made
Did
on
we
the
pull
fly.
that out?
We need to go back and look, because there were several adjustments on the fly. I believe you've got part of those out and part of those not.
Well, it just seems to me that whatever they're doing, they should be running through general
I think
yeah,
office.
so we
more of
pulled
those
it.
there.
They're pulled.
Go up a little bit on the budget.
Can we look through?
The convenience voting and TRC
I
stuff.
think
is
if
pulled.
you roll up, Beth, there's one or two.
Okay, the TRC is pulled too?
109,
Okay.
if you did under 109.
I think I had a couple more questions on there.
So we did full
Okay.
convenience?
109.
Yes, we did, but I know, I wanted to make a comment, well, go ahead, you review. Because I was gonna make a comment about convenience voting.
Piggybacking off of what Commissioner Boyd said,
Okay.
she said, if we go to convenience voting, it'll be one machine per 10,000 voters. If we keep it the way it is precinct-wise, then it's not one machine, but it's one center per 6,000 voters, not machine per voters. So if you're saying that if we may have to go to smaller things, if eventually we do go to convenience, we're going to have, like she said, I think 7 more stations, so it would have gone from 29 to 36. I just think these are things we just need to keep in mind and not forget.
So, oh, go ahead.
But that's all, that's all.
So I will say that after the last meeting, I have up till that meeting been strongly against convenience voting. That meeting, I don't know that it fully changed my mind, but it definitely shifted my mindset once I understood that the convenience voting was truly a one-time expense. So I'm on the fence, and I really would have wanted to hear from them again on this about whether to do it or not. I don't know quite how to do it because we can't pull it out of capital, and we're really tight on, just a second, we're really tight on our general fund, which we just went a lot of hash about that, so I'm not quite sure how to do it. That's one. The second thing, and I think Ms. Boyd probably pushed me a bit the other direction, if we are looking at potential changes, it's kind of like a wait and see might be the right call here. But the third thing I want to kind of comment, and this does get into operations, I don't want to go crazy with it, but I do think it should inform like the numbers that we put at a baseline and really inform the line of questioning that we have. Ms. Boyd put together a nice document of the total hours that our centers are open versus the hours that the other centers are open. I'm going to hand it to her in just a second. It's illuminating. I had argued that wasn't a fair comparison because they were hours, not man hours. But then in a follow-on discussion that we had right after the last meeting, I think Ms. Boyd's there's a point there that, yes, we don't know what the number of employees are, but we can absolutely normalize off of customers served because we do have those numbers. And so given that, I think we can I think there's pretty compelling evidence that we are not necessarily, we are more efficient than we used to be, but to your point last night, maybe we keep squeezing a little bit, but I'll hand it to you.
So, and I have to say, when Lori says it's hard to compare, it made my eyes cross, and when we get finished, I want to send this back with finance so they can recount. So what I did is I was able to find on the Secretary of State's site the Sumner County hours of early voting for coming into, I just used the November, so the October, because that was the hours that were out there. And I compared them to Sumner County, Wilson, and Montgomery. So last night we talked about just Montgomery, and Mr. Long pointed out, because they probably have a higher absentee ballot voter, that they would have less days. So in their days, so I'll just talk about the days first, because it's the hours that's the thing. In Sumner County, if we look at just early voting, because that's what Commissioner Becker wanted to focus on, was in Sumner County, we have, by my calculation, 35 days of early voting leading into that November. And in Wilson County, they had 56 days of open. Now, when I look at it on the graph, I'm like, you know, on the benchmarking, I know where Wilson is and I know where we're at. And Montgomery County had 25 days open. But that might be because it's less people face-to-face and more absentee. But then it's the hours. So when I look at, and that was one of the things that I discussed with Miss Ashley, if they wanted to have more voters, why did they close on noon on Saturday? Because we've all been outside and there's people still driving in after the place is closed and people still wanting to come. we close at noon, Wilson closes at 1, and Montgomery on Saturday well, they have extended hours, I didn't write that down, but 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock at one location. So our total hours that we are servicing for early hours is 261. Sumner County, 261. Wilson County is providing 520 hours.
Wow.
So,
Twice the number.
yeah, but we can see on the benchmark where we line up with costs, we're really
Whatever
kind of not
Wilson
too
is-
far.
Whatever Wilson is doing,
Oh.
we need to figure it out,
And
because they're
I'm
doing a
telling
good
you,
job.
this is another conversation, but this is what Wilson County has. Look at this. I told you before, I'm like, you should see clear government. Look at that.
Oh,
Is that,
that's nice.
Isn't that sweet? It's a subscription, and they'll pull it right off of our Muni system, I think.
That's nice.
And we
Yeah.
could budget for something like this. Have you seen this?
That's a ClearGov, it's another software.
ClearGov, yeah, it is. Isn't it sweet?
Uh,
I know. Just
So,
communicate, I think.
in any case, I'm saying all that to say that, or Ms. Boyd, are you complete?
Yeah, Mayor, did you want to say? I only have one copy.
Oh, no, I'm fine,
It's a-
thank you.
It's a good analysis, and I mean, at the end of the day,
Can you email it too?
I think
I can.
there are some, we're getting just all this evidence around the edges that, there are efficiencies to be had. We don't have the ability to like direct some of this stuff, but I think that we can, use that to inform what we do here. I was actually gonna come here and make a motion to, move some pennies for convenience voting, knowing that that would encounter some resistance, but given what Ms. Boyd just said, I don't know that I want to make that motion anymore unless somebody else does. I think I might be in the wait and see camp now. Does anybody want to make a motion? Because one question we have to do is do we want to fund convenience voting right now? That's a,
Convenience voting, though, is on election day.
right,
Is it
but
just
it
the
has
one day?
implications for
Every site.
For all of the sites, for all other.
Right, but I'm just saying, we need to be clear, convenience voting, early voting is convenience voting, because you can go to any of those locations and vote.
Right.
And then, ideally, your name is stricken from the record, the minute you cast your vote, it's gone, okay? So for people who might be concerned about double voting. But the convenience voting that, as I understood it, with the 36 locations would be on election
Right.
day proper.
You are correct, but you mentioned earlier.
But
broad-
29, not 36.
The broader implications is the total amount of,
We would need fewer convenience
Yeah,
voting stations.
right, but you're right, and so that's the broader implication of it, but given both of the things that Ms. Boyd brought up, one regarding the federal changes, and two, that like clearly there's still some efficiencies to be had, I'm of the opinion we don't do convenience voting, we normalize against previous years and kind of like keep it where it is.
Point out one thing to you really quick. When you're talking about early voting versus election day, if you look at the benchmarking, Sumner County on the presidential, which was your largest election, 64.66% actually cast early votes, so you had the vast majority. Now, when you go back into the primary, you were slightly under 50%. We actually had the lowest percentage of early voting on the primary. And then I want to point out one thing that you mentioned. You had asked earlier about capitalization. Our policy is anything under $7,500 not to capitalize it, but technically you can capitalize anything that's capital in nature. So the question was, we won't own those buildings, but with an MOU,
Right.
those lines you technically can do it. But do you want to go down that path?
Yeah, I mean,
So do you wanna go down
I
that path?
wanted to go down that path until I heard this, like I
Our
really
policy,
did,
our
I really
policy.
did want to, and maybe we do, but, if we've got some time to wait, like,
Are you thinking wait, because this 26th election is not a presidential?
Correct.
So you're saying, let's get through one more and consider it for the
Yes.
27 fiscal
because
year?
at that point, the feds are gonna make whatever changes they're gonna make.
Oh, yeah, because Congress may completely change over in
Completely,
26.
we don't
yeah.
know, but it's just, there's enough in flux, and there's not like a pressing need. We could get it done if it does make sense, we could get it done between 2026 and 2028.
And I've done that job, I think I've worked through, I know 3 elections, 3 full presidential election cycles, so for 12 years, or 8 years, I did that. And I know it's hard work, it's labor intensive, I understand everything about the location, being at the location.
Right.
I don't understand how it works in the office, but I will say, when speaking to her budget, when I looked at some of those hours too, and I looked at we could do with state laws, it's 20 days before election day, it must be finished 5 days before, it doesn't say a specific number of days in what I looked at. And we could do 1 week in Gallatin and 1 week in Hendersonville, and then do your satellite days. But I still don't know, especially in a presidential election, you're going to have so many, if you reduce the amount of days that it's open for early voting, you're going to have more people. So does it reduce anything? Because she's going to need more machines, she's going to need more staff. And that is not my job to figure out what she needs. And I don't want to do that, but I don't want us to prepay for something that an executive order or something wipes out, because we are really still in that honeymoon period with this president, and we still don't know what we're looking at.
Yeah, I agree with you. What's our current budget on there? Like, we would just,
We can look up.
I think what we would do.
Look at some of those.
Yeah, let's look at it and
There's some stuff in
normalize
this.
against over years.
Let me clear what road I was speaking
Look at
of,
this.
Matt.
Okay. You got
Earlier I was talking about our capital projects is, we have a capitalization threshold of $7,500.
Yeah.
We have never budgeted anything under
Here, you want my
$7,500, but according to the guidelines from GASB, we can, as long as they're capital in nature. So technically you can.
Well, no, I know, but it sounds to me like we don't want to.
Okay.
Just from a policy point.
Miss Browning, I think, had that.
I think it was $1 million ask.
Yeah, so.
900 and something.
60,000 for 1090, the modifications to her building.
Let's just go to their, what I'm thinking of doing here.
I'm just looking at the operating.
I am too at this point, is to normalize against, I guess, 2022. That's, I think, the right year to normalize against. Or to take the 2014, 2018, 2020, and 22 line and normalize that way. Not the non-election years, or the non-presidential years.
It would be 24, 21.
One
comes from presidential, so you'd be looking at 22.
Yeah.
High 22.
Yeah, you go to 22. We'll look at 2021, 2022.
21 would be a presidential.
Yeah, that's right. So it would be 2022.
Here's the first one that Ms. Boyd was over there asking about. This one says communication, Union School Road for $430.
Like I said earlier, like new items, what are?
Let's just strike it, and then if she's
I think
gonna
we
come
should.
back,
Yeah.
to justify it, just strike it. Show that she
Yeah,
needs
that's
it,
the
show
building they're in, they shouldn't need any
it. Yeah,
more.
just strike it. Okay.
And are we, I'm still trying to line up with where we're at. Are we at the bottom of theirs, going up? Is that what we're doing, going up?
I'm trying to look at their pay.
What page are you on, Terry?
I'm not lined up.
Oh, you're not lined up?
I mean, they're on page 36 on the
No,
operating
I just
budget.
I wanna look at their, we cut that.
And
I
then
wanna look
this
at their-
one is more in detail, more line
You're
items.
looking at overtime too, like election workers.
Election workers and overtime and then election workers.
So-
Yeah, it's big jump in
Yeah, so
overtime
why-
from 7,900 to 56,000.
So, but if we're looking at, this is what we should be looking at here. This 2025, this is a presidential year, 2026 should not be a presidential year, so this should come down to like, way down off that.
Yeah, I agree. I
That should
saw
be
that
down to
last
like,
night.
you know,
1.5%.
what you do is we
You
wanna
know, we
see.
saw 30% on some of the other numbers.
Yeah, but.
So 30%?
But what we wanna do is we wanna take the line from all your non-election years going back up 10 years and follow that up.
Right. So what increase, because you've been looking, it's been 30%.
So if
The
you.
last two, so if you take 130% of 130,000,
So,
169,000.
170,000, yeah, something like that.
Let me go over here to the salary sheet and get it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you could even give, 170, 180, but not 280.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
doing
I'm
different
following.
math than you, I was saying 26,000.
Now, this is the election workers, right? See, here's our problem. We have 8 workers. We have more full-time workers, but
Poll workers.
when did we get them? When did they increase their
We're on poll
employees?
workers base. So what amount did you guys fall back to?
So, what we're trying to do, Beth, is,
So these are the temporary workers.
Did you want to do 170? No, this is your poll workers, working at the poll. You have part-time that's above there.
Oh, I see.
These are people who put out the machines,
How
work
much
on the
do poll
polls.
workers make now? Do they
It's
make a
in-
set amount
is it in
per
this-
day?
Yes, and it was a schedule I passed
So
out
it's
last
not
night.
an hourly, it's not an hourly.
I don't understand. So I think,
Uh-huh.
let's just push it to 180. Are you good with that, Terry?
I think,
I think that's more than a 34% kind of bump on a
Okay.
like over like year.
she's liking it to a presidential year, is
I'll
what she's
calculate 30, I'm
budgeting.
gonna go 35% times, what was it, 130, I think?
130.
135%, so 1.35 times 130, 175.5, so we know 180.
180.
180. And let's start.
And that's like a
a
38%.
That's
You
$100,000.
need to bring it down to 108,000.
Yeah. That's $100,000.
108,400, I think.
I mean, I think it's justified.
I
I
do
mean,
too.
year over year, she was budgeting for another
For
presidential.
another president, exactly, with bump.
Yeah,
Like, that doesn't make sense.
unless there's gonna be another presidential, we don't know if she's got a glass ball.
All right.
Glass
If that's happening, it's not an election that's going
Is
on.
anybody aware of any special elections?
That's a real special election right there.
Let's go
So,
back to the main, well, she's gonna look it over time too, I think what everybody agrees to.
yeah, the overtime went, like,
I'm on camera too.
we've put out, for overtime, we had basically $8,000, and now we've jumped to 56,000.
Where's
If
that
I'm
at?
looking at my sheet, I don't know. You have to go to the sheet. Right there, see?
Oh, right here.
But why am I seeing expenditures for 2024?
Yeah, so,
Am I on the wrong page?
wait. So 56,000, what was the 2022?
Where's that there? Why doesn't he
So I
see
say,
that?
remember,
Oh, this
one's
is
presidential, and the
Right.
other one is,
What,
So he's not seeing
so
this.
this is 2026. Hold on a
Hey, Matt,
second.
you're not seeing one number for some reason.
Hold on.
The actual.
Part-time or you want?
Go to 2022.
I need to be on the page.
I can't go to 2022 on this sheet.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I want
It's in the appendix.
It'll be over on the, main
A4.
appropriation sheet.
No, I just don't think that this sheet has that on it.
What we were looking up there.
Yeah, this is
that
going,
was-
this is going nuts.
Well, I think if you
Yeah,
look at-
that's it right there,
It's
Matt. So
gonna
you
be
see where I'm seeing now,
25.
it's 8,000 to
I think,
56.
nuts.
I think that 25 column there
That's
is a different
exactly what I'm
estimate.
talking
Yeah,
about.
this should be back down into these levels, like
Here it's all
$15,000.
zero, they mark that in red.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
it's-
minus 50,000
See,
here,
that
like, I don't
would be-
understand.
we need to fix that.
I mean, we're seeing the same thing.
Oh, here we go.
That was,
A4.
because that's
No,
$7,900.
you were queuing on there, I was
Way
queuing
up
on
there.
up here.
Well,
It didn't
when
make
he's
sense.
on this one,
Let me tell you how much
it's
overtime they
Oh, makes
spend.
sense.
But we can't, I'm only looking at 26, this doesn't go back one.
And this is overtime for our full-time employees, because
Yes, ma'am.
day workers are set rate. I just want to clarify.
This should be comparable to this, the 50, well, it may be more than 16, I'm gonna do 15,000 times 1.35.
Overtime right now, they have spent 35,000 to 1181.
But that's election year.
Right.
Presidential. And I just want to put in a piece, I think we're gonna have to redo elections if they do change federal elections. So,
So this should be 20,000, 25, just do 21,000. Right there, I just did, here's the math, I did Terry.
oh, I'm good with you.
All right. What I did is 1 times 1.35. Well.
No, I can't, I have to change it here
Oh,
because it
sorry.
changes it on the.
Sorry.
There's benefits
Sorry.
calculated too. Yeah, we've got benefits involved in that.
Gotcha.
What was the math one?
You wanted 21?
21,000.
So you need to minus 10,000, 9,627.
There you
And the
go.
current is budgeted, that's 25, right, and
Yeah.
overtime? That 29,735 is this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
That
so
was
I
their
wanna make sure, 'cause
budget.
yes, I'm looking, I'm just making sure that we've got the dates. I was seeing
Okay. And I know what she was, well, I'm sure I know where some of those numbers came from. Some of those numbers, she was probably calculating up the additional precincts she's saying that
So,
we're gonna need.
can
But,
we,
I mean, given the over hour comparison that we're looking at, I don't know that I buy that argument.
So I think the postal charges, if we can go to that, I think the postal charges is so she can send out notifications to the
Precinct.
voters.
Precinct locations are based on numbers of registered voters, but if there's some type of,
Because what I'm saying is, if we get the same amount of hour efficiency, maybe we have too many workers at each of those locations, is my
possibly.
So I think,
So
oh, I see.
you could spread them out.
I think postal charges are
It's
up
still-
because she was gonna put out a mailer to let everybody know where their new convenient voting centers were.
It sure seems like they've got a ton
So
of
why,
workers at
that's
the
the only reason I
precincts.
can think it went up $25,000.
Well,
Oh,
You have
and
to
then
have-
it's postal.
She
you
did, she
have to have
mentioned
one per
something.
We were
machine,
doing a
one per
catch-up.
machine.
She
Yeah.
did, she
She got
mentioned
three.
something about also they requiring
One
them
per
versus the state to
voting
verify.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some new
One
requirements
per
that we had there.
computer.
That one may be
Listen,
justified.
you
go to
I
don't
think
have
we
to
leave that.
transfer.
Right,
One
okay,
there.
right,
One per, you have to have a director of elections.
Okay.
okay.
Anything
And
else on
then
this one,
that
Terry?
thing,
At
say
that
director of
location.
You'll need
And you
paper.
have an assistant.
Printing stationery would not, but
That's what we
maybe,
ran.
whatever they're
Okay.
mailing out, they're
Well,
gonna have
these
to
are
have on
probably,
paper.
this is probably the same, these are probably related.
What are
It's
their
not
drugs
paper.
and medical
That's how we
supplies?
What is
It's
it?
not
What is it?
much.
When she was
What is it?
boss.
Drugs and medical supplies.
No, 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 no.
It's actual
not paper.
printed items, it's not paper.
But
Our paper
No, I
would be
meant
under office
printed, like
supplies,
To
right?
election since 12.
Printing.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just saying.
It's a
that-
So
lot-
I don't know
lot
why
could
they
have
need drugs
changed.
and medical supply for almost 1,000.
Well, I mean, I can buy that if they're on site, you may want,
Some
you may
drugs,
want
okay.
your.
Tylenol?
They've had enough in this year though.
What? Yeah, because when you're there, I can only, I never worked early voting, but election day, you're supposed to get an hour for lunch. You get there at 6:30 in the morning, you're there until
So is this
every last
Tylenol?
table is putting the thing. What?
It's drugs.
$850.
I guess so. We maybe we
Band-Aids,
need
things people get
Band-Aids.
hurt or like.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
General construction materials. Is that so they can work on the building they're in?
I don't know, let's strike that.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on drone construction drawings. Could be light bulbs, it could be
But
a
those aren't our
space heater,
Not our
a
building.
fan.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, but they bought.
Well, they got that other building, I mean, but I say we strike it and let them come justify. That's my
Office,
opinion.
office supplies went up 20%.
I mean,
I'm
it's
just
not a
saying,
ton of money.
not a ton of money.
I'm good either, however y'all wanna do it. Do you wanna leave it, or what do you wanna do with it? To construct this 1,000 right here, do you wanna strike it and make them justify? Do you wanna change this one down to 12,000?
Well, I
I'd say
wanted-
strike it and let's
I wanted to strike
find out what it
everything
is.
that's
Strike
new.
this one.
I wanted to strike
bring that one to
everybody's
12,000.
budget that grew for,
It's 16,675.
just to find out what people are doing.
I don't know if I'd fool with the instructional supplies,
They've
because we're
never
coming
had it.
into an election year.
I just
You're
wanna
saying
know
she
what they
may have to
are.
have new, because they can't, when you go to training, they have to train the poll workers, or she's gonna have to train.
But she didn't do it in the other years. Has she ever done it, Bethany? Go back.
Maybe she needs new,
Instructional supplies.
because you have booklets, like they print out a booklet and you take it home to study.
I mean, that's,
Okay.
you wanna leave it.
Leave
It's
it.
16,675 though, I would take that down to
Where's
12,000.
these at? Are these still on
What is that?
Has anybody got a problem with that?
They covered
No.
that earlier.
Alright, so that goes to
What was the
12,000.
amount, 25?
there? 25.
4,675.
Go down and make sure we cut the equipment, Bethany, that's what, Perry's asking, I think we did, or they did last.
It's called office equipment.
We didn't
Yeah,
do
just cut that.
we
Oh,
didn't
that
do elections at all
Like I said,
last
50
week.
bucks an hour.
Yeah, I'm fine with cutting that.
And we did
We
that
started
one.
talking about, she
I'm
was
just saying,
here, but
Mr. Long handed out
we didn't
another
touch
sheet
it.
that didn't have the cuts.
That's from the 25, so it was wrong.
Alright.
This is where how you came into 25, yeah. That's
It
where
was
we were
because
showing why the
we
election
didn't
workers.
have the
How it got
document.
to where it's at.
We-
Yeah,
that's
the
right,
year you're in
Barbara
right now,
got
not
to me
next year.
last
All right.
night.
All right.
This is,
So that, I think
That's why
we
we-
cut that one and I think we're good.
And so can we, yeah,
All
just
right.
roll up a little bit, but I think I'm good
I can see.
for questions there.
I mean, we just removed like $150,000 of stuff there. Now, some of it maybe need to come back, but
I think that if this federal thing goes through, we're gonna have to come and give them more money in a different way.
probably so. I mean,
Unless the feds step in. The feds may step in and give it to us.
If we go back to paper ballots,
It's not for us to decide.
the storage.
We got 3 empty rooms downstairs.
I was gonna make a
store
comment,
them.
but I was keeping myself.
How long are they supposed to keep those tapes now? 3 years?
So lots of places do have paper ballots. More counties
I'm
have
asking that.
paper,
I'm asking
and
you, how
what they
long do
store
we have to
them,
store them?
they store them by image.
Oh, so they're scanned, they're electronically stored.
But they
okay.
don't, what they're looking at is counting them and then scanning them, not scanning them and then counting them. It's gonna be,
I see.
yeah, so that is what's happened.
So I think we're through here. Is there anything else that we wanna look at? I think we're,
So my earlier thing was, not just the elections, but a lot of these have just stuck in new items that I don't know what they are.
I mean,
Can we just
we got
instruct-
30 minutes. Oh, go ahead. You wanna just, instruct the,
You wanna look at capital items? 'Cause we-
You wanna look at capital?
well, yeah, let's do capital. Well, I was gonna,
Actually,
what were you gonna say?
there is one item that came up last night, and I wish the lawyer were back. He said, regarding the 81, that Mayor, you might wanna listen.
I'm listening.
Okay. He said that CTAS had indicated that the 81 was in place until we finished the 12. It's everywhere, what? But the one thing is it's still highways purchasing. I'd like to look at moving resources into accounting, no matter where we end up. If they revoke the 81 or the 12, we still need to move highways purchasing over to accounting. And if we put resources in, I know we removed their bookkeeper, but if we put that back in and took a look at that, I mean,
Well,
that's one piece that's out of
So,
compliance
wait.
with both acts.
Wait. So this was the reason I had, okay, so we have a motion second, and I'm gonna speak on
And I'm
this.
not talking about removing his people, I'm just talking about adding somebody and trying.
Well, I made a motion last night to get a comprehensive look from the finance department to understand what the full cost of the implementation of the 1981 Act would be. So I'm against this, but I'm just gonna tell you why. It's not because I'm necessarily in principle, but like, if we're gonna go, you're gonna give us what that project would look like. We could potentially surge capital to it and, there's a lot of different ways we could do it. But
But
like, why pick?
That
why
one
just-
piece is for both of them.
But-
We come into compliance with both of them.
It's
We
the
gotta
s-
do that one piece no matter
But
which way
it's
we
the
go.
same, but here's the thing, I'm gonna make your argument about the election commission here. What this would do is we're moving a piece before we know all of them, like the way the chessboard is. Let me finish real quick.
But if we
So,
fork, we're,
yeah, but we've got a vote coming up on the 1981 versus 2012. We don't know that. I would personally like to put that off until I knew what this dollar amount was gonna be, but either way, we don't know how that vote's gonna go, and we don't know what the full cost of it is gonna be, so I don't think we should make any moves until we've done that. Once we've done that, then it may make sense, but anyway, you got the motion, there was a second, any other comments on it?
well, to support it, I'd just like to say, either way we fork, we end up, the highway needs to move over to purchasing for best practices. And we talked about it
But
last
how
year.
long will it take?
This is what we talked about last.
We talked about it last night, like, how
We
long
moved-
will it take? And so we
Well,
don't,
we can't get there unless we start.
but we don't, one person, one bookkeeper may not be enough. And he's gonna give us a plan. So why move
Highway,
on?
this is the thing you gotta remember a couple things. One, we're gonna have to have somewhere to put everybody.
Yeah.
Cause their office is as big as that one upstairs, and everybody.
I'm just
won't
talking
fit
about
on
one
that floor.
person right now.
No, but
But,
that's.
but my other thing I'm gonna mention is, we're talking about the schools, all the people come over, so you're not talking, that's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
This one here's for highway and to do with things where we're already doing implementations and we're running a lot of overtime. That's what the original request here was for all the overtime, and we need help already up there. That was the original bookkeeper request. But the highway department does not have a significant number of POs, so if we move the person we need for other reasons, we were also going to move receipting out of the purchasing people, because it's very hard for them to do that. And my thought process, we could go ahead and try to do highway, because they don't have a lot of POs, basically, look at it too. We think we could probably absorb it if we did get the account no matter what.
You think if you got the bookkeeper?
The bookkeeper we need anyway, that's what I'm saying.
Well-
That's really kind of two issues, because the original budget had two things in there, a lot of
All
overtime
right.
and that. We removed the overtime and the bookkeeper, so.
So you think you could do, what would be your timeframe? Because I'm just
And-
getting
You
skeptical
guys-
because we've gone down this path before and then.
And there- and
If the committee goes in and they have the authority and say you put them in a July 1, we hire somebody September and they change that policy September 1, we could have the POs over for highway pretty easy.
And there would, when you say they would be over, would there be any decrease in, like, 'cause Mr. Ellis's problem was that the time, you know, just wouldn't get done in time, like. if you-
That's not, these are usually done in an hour, that's kind of what we're, and the
Okay.
thing is, if it's an emergency, and that was mentioned, we have a policy that says if you have an emergency.
No, I know.
You abate the emergency and you have 24 hours to get a PO. The problem is people at times don't get POs.
All right, so how much was the bookkeeper?
It was 50, and it was to do agendas, move some of the receipting over, and it would help like 2-3 sections.
If you, all right.
We
So
probably
can
need
you-
that
Can you
one.
do that with the,
We probably need that more than the project person, to be honest. The project person, what we're running into is more people's wanting us to do the projects, and there was a lot of Title VI compliance that's not
I mean,
necessary.
that's
being
part of
done.
it, but we've got a bunch of little projects running around this county, like, I mean.
And we are trying to get them all in here, and the other thing is you've got
All right,
Title VI
let's-
issues.
is there
that we're gonna
anything
deal
else
with.
here? Let's just
So,
take a vote on it.
along to support this also, I'm looking at if we could get purchasing, that we can get purchasing in the county centralized. I'd like to get, and it's been a while since I looked at it, our limit up to 50,000, if we could get a clear, what is that thing? If we get it, we
You
get
have
a
to have
purchasing
schools.
clerk, we have to have schools?
According to what I'm understanding from the comptroller's office.
Okay, then
I'll see
skip
that.
this.
To do the 50,000, you would actually have to have the
The
school.
schools, okay. I thought we'd get an advantage on that, but,
Because you've already maxed out 25. And you've got everything
Okay, it's fine.
consolidated
I
except for
thought if we
highway
could-
POs right now.
it was explained to me differently, but I'll go with you.
But
All right.
be clear,
So
we're
we
doing
have a-
everything else.
We have a motion here. Any other talks on it? So the motion is to add, did you have one, Ms. Bristol? Comment?
So we're still on the motion. You're
The
not-
motion is to
motion-
add a bookkeeper back to the,
So that we can move over purchasing from highway.
any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm gonna go no on this one. But I'm a rule, I think I've lost every vote today, so. So that one, so you add it back in.
But you're not bitter.
I mean,
What-
win some, you lose
Forgive
some.
me, you voted to put a bookkeeper back in to move POs over?
Yes.
The committee will have to vote for the POs, but.
Okay, anything else? I think we're almost done for
That's
today.
the
Are we going to capital,
Um,
or are we not?
new capital.
So
yeah, we can do capital. That's fine.
you keep saying that we could take everything out that's a new item. Can we
We're-
just instruct them to
Yeah,
do?
that's what I was gonna say,
Just
just, or just at
instruct
least
them.
flag it.
Can we instruct them to?
Yeah.
There's two things, new items sometimes are because people misclassified the year before and moved them.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just think,
Just
I
look
think
at it and let
flag
us
it,
know.
flag it.
Can y'all flag?
We'll try to make
Just
this flag
flag
on
it.
it.
Yeah.
Highlight it up.
As opposed to just blank remove it, because.
Yes, thank
So
you.
let's just,
We'll make anything we think is potentially brand new and on color for you.
all right.
And then next meeting, we can go
Color.
through, I've got to figure out what
Tan.
color.
Tan's a naughty color.
It's just, I don't wanna remove it, let's just, that's fine, we just flag it. Okay, next thing. So let's do capital, and then we've got 20 minutes.
Page
Go
97.
to the capital project funds appropriations.
Is that 97?
Yes, it is.
Yes, sir, it sure is. Go back to the top. First item, trustees commission required by statute.
We went through, I thought we went.
Never, well, you,
What
somebody
page?
said you had to sign. I think.
97, but,
I'm not one of those.
no, I'm not either.
What had we not
Sorry.
decided on? The only thing
You're
that
on the,
changed was the 2
You
million.
said 97.
Is there,
That is
before we go,
the
we got
subject.
20 minutes here.
Revenue.
Do we,
You wanna be
is
right.
there anything that anybody, we removed the 2 million for the courthouse, that vote happened. Is there anything else anybody wants to like remove? Mr. Klein?
The two things that I wanted to talk about, I think they're supposed to be in capital, is the EMS station
It's in there.
for $3.5 million.
And now, just to be clear, which one, is this one for the White House location?
I-
Okay.
Well,
It's him off.
Yeah, it's either White House or Millersville.
This one's the White House.
And the reason I wanna pull it out, at least for the time being, is because Bethel Road is very close to White House. And there's been talk about the one covers the other, and I'm not totally sure, but I know that we're still in negotiations on the MOU with City of Millersville of whether we keep our two people in there, we do the work on the bedrooms or not. So that's one of the questions I have. And the other one is the $4.5 million that the sheriff wants to include in the old jail area. Now, if this is Water Street and this is Smith Street, currently the sheriff is in 3,000 square feet. Ron Blanton's people are gonna be up in here. This is 23,100 square feet.
But we already voted on moving
Well,
those guys
we
in there as a.
we voted that he
As
has.
a full commission.
But we haven't voted on
We voted that he gets the space.
Right.
But we haven't voted on the $4.5 million to improve, and we don't even know what we're improving it for,
So what
so.
do you wanna do?
I wanna give him $100,000 for space planning and
I
hold
see
back
what
on the
you're saying.
rest.
And just
Come
just-
forward with a plan.
just
Yeah, let's have a
$100,000.
plan
Yeah,
before we
easier.
accommodate him
Okay,
with,
you know what, that's fine, like
I like that.
$100,000 to, just for to hire a planner.
yeah, that's
All right,
it.
that's fine, I'm fine with that.
Is 100,000 enough?
I
It seems
think
like
so.
every time y'all
You're
come back with
going to
plans.
have to hire an architect or an engineer. The problem is, even the design's a percentage, so we can bring you back the design percentage based on the estimated cost.
So is
But
100 enough?
if you've not determined if you're doing 23,000 square foot, it brings, so I think the best thing right now
Well,
is to put the 100,
and-
we'll send it to Sheriff Craddock. He can come back to the committee and talk to you what he needs to get the estimate.
I've got 3 sets of plans upstairs, and Josh says, I'm gonna sit down with Eric as soon as we can.
Who Josh is.
Look, put 100 in there, and if it turns out that he needs 300, we'll do 300.
Great,
Okay,
great.
that's fine.
So I'll say we'll notify him and
But
he
you
can come
also
back.
have
Great.
150 up here, back for Judge Blanton, for
Um,
his space.
And can
For
we,
his design.
Now, that's true, because, so that was,
oh,
but
and
that's
then-
different, but that's different.
opioids.
That's
is
an
what it
architect
is.
That's coming,
design.
and I don't wanna mess with that, because that's coming out of, because that's, we're bringing, what, 450 out of,
I thought I called 500,000 of opioid,
and
150
then
out of here.
150 out of this, so what, we need to
And
leave
the
this
150
alone.
here would be the architecture portion.
So we need to leave this one alone, so, because we're kinda splitting it up here. So I would leave that, so the 100,000 is for Eric Craddock's, for the Sheriff
Space
Craddock on his
plan,
side.
yeah.
But we have the 650, which is totally,
That's all of that plan. That's the entire
That's his
Judge
entire-
Blanton's-
that's all his, that's right.
That's his
But-
entire-
It's 8,000, it's 8,026 square feet.
Yeah.
I've got one additional question. The mayor said he would try to help with the outside. Do we need to give the mayor's budget some money to do the ramps and all the
I
other
thought
stuff?
That I
they'd already
don't know.
taken care of
That's a
that.
question for him. He said he was gonna take care of it, but did he need money to do it?
Do you
We
need
took
money?
care, we voted on that last
I don't know, is
week.
it part of the ADA or is it something additional?
Mayor?
It's ADA because
Want
it's a
money?
wheelchair
Is
ramp.
he planning to use that money or does he need some
I'll
money?
plan on doing that under the ADA budget. I'm waiting on the estimates.
Anything else, Mr. Klein?
That's it, that's all
Okay.
I
I
got.
have a different kind of request. It's something that we've discussed in here. If you go back to, and I'm not gonna reduce the sheriff's vehicles or anything. I would like to send a request for, health and emergency management to put a schedule together for budget where they look at the cars and come out with a
That's fine.
long-term plan of what they need and let health and emergency management handle that and start,
Just like a
Working
Gantt
that.
chart will fall in. All
you know
right,
what
is
I'm
there-
saying? Can we do that?
Yeah,
And
we can
tell
just
them-
ask them.
Part of the motion be to send it on up to us for the long-term planning. We'll do it every year.
What is it?
Can you, do I need to make a motion? I'd like to make a motion for that.
Oh,
Second.
hey, well, okay, let's take care of this, but you're right.
Be helpful in the long-term plan.
Okay, so I have a motion to send that over to Health and Emergency Services.
And what
for
I would like them to
long-term plan.
do is look at
We have a
the
motion second. All in
vehicles.
favor?
Aye.
All emergency vehicles.
Can you have in the motion to send copies?
That's fine. All
All
emergency
right.
vehicles, that's fine.
So they
Okay.
can start planning.
Okay, we're just running close on time, guys. So, we
What
got
do we
15
at?
minutes. So the
What do you wanna do
3.5
for?
million,
Yeah.
Mr. Klein had brought this up. I'm very much against killing this. Do we want to kill it? Is there a
What is
motion?
it? Oh,
I make a motion to kill it until we figured out what we're doing with
We have a motion
Millersville.
to remove the 3.5 million. Is there a second?
I'm
We have a motion on.
gonna second it just
Okay.
because And Mayor, I want to talk to you about, because the other day I talked to the room about that the state's coming forward with fire, that the county's gonna start stepping into that. I'd like to look at a multi-function building opposed to just designing it for EMS. If we know that it, and we all think it's coming, I mean, I think that you've probably been on these too, looking at fire and
Is there-
EMS in that building, not just
I say we leave the 3.5 million in there and focus on that.
a multi-purpose.
So we have a,
Absolutely, we can design it that way.
Ms. Boyd, go ahead. Or, excuse me,
Can we-
Ms. Bergdorf.
Oh, no.
Ms. Boyd, go ahead.
Can we move it down to planning? Can we go half and plan and then bring the rest in
It's up
later
to-
like we did
There's a
the
motion on
other?
the floor,
Well, I
there's a
mean-
motion on the floor to remove it, and that's the
Okay.
motion.
Vote on that motion first.
Do we have, is there any further discussion to remove it? All in favor?
I'm
Aye.
gonna go remove it, aye.
Okay.
No.
All against, no. Motion
So it's-
fails.
yeah.
So it stays at 3.5 million, but Mr. Mayor, you can,
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
Can we do
and
a-
we'll talk, yeah, we'll talk
You know what
about
I'm
the
saying?
plan. Yep.
All right,
To get it better.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Any other?
Now, we had taken 1.2 million out of Eric Craddock's budget for cars and things like that. Since we just pulled out 4.5, can we take any of that and
We
give it?
could, but why would we do that if we don't have?
We already said we didn't need it.
Because the person, he matched those cars up to new personnel.
Go to the sign.
Yeah.
So if you did new if you removed some of the
Oh.
new personnel, then you don't need the cars.
Anybody also want to think?
And we can't use that money we took back for personnel?
No,
Because
because
it's
it's
not
capital.
recurring.
That's
Right.
And you may want to think about this right here. When this money's depleted, if you have some of this money left, it would be very helpful for highway to put into the.
Yeah.
So you got 20 million here
Is
now.
there, I asked Toby and, I'd like Toby to have that software, because I think it'd be a great planning tool for him as well as for all of us.
How much
I don't
was
know-
that software?
I was offering them
Like
money, and you know, I never offered.
250,000, I make a motion for up to $250,000 for
Is it recurring software that you
Yes.
pay?
I think it's a
Ooh,
subscription.
like
There's,
subscription based.
you know what, he can like, my understanding is Gallatin has bought something and they're running it around on the roads, but we need Toby to tell us.
So yeah, just let him tell us, ask him what it.
And
what
he's
that is.
looking at somebody else driving it around,
So
but
let's make
I want him
no-
to have.
Didn't
it.
he
That's
tell
great,
us
but
about
let's-
it?
I agree, but let's let no changes right now, and I'm sorry,
Is it
we just
I know,
gotta
we
do
gotta
it.
go.
$250,000 a
I know.
year, or is it 250,000 a year?
So anything else that we need to change on capital? All right,
Can we ask Toby to just bring us off?
yes, we can.
Thank you.
Let's do that. Anything else? I think we are gonna close out. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, here we go. Boom, we have a budget that's balanced.
We need to actually dig into it there. We need to get out of it early, but we need to head that direction since Browning.
Yeah, I'll go.
That agenda.
I really need to go, but I'll go.
We need to get it posted right now.
Yeah, let's just do it right here. Let's just do it.
Can.
Ah.
All right.